everyone, Novels Wonderland here. Thank you all for the love and support you've shown me and the channel.
Danmachi, the Multiverse Portal. Chapter 171 to 185, Chapter 171, Bonus. Thank you all so much for your incredible support this week. New week, let's push. After turning into the third alley, August noticed the street suddenly seemed duller. A few striking figures appeared along the narrow road, making the rest of the surroundings look plain by comparison. So this is August. August stopped. He was the only mortal around, and 2 or 3 goddesses blocked every exit. Their eyes shone with interest, envy, and barely hidden hunger. Am I being ambushed? The moment the words left his mouth, the goddesses moved in and formed a tight circle around him. Wow, he's got some muscles. No wonder he looks so fit. And he's got a nice face, too. Hestia must be feeding him well. He even gives off a warm vibe. Soft hands started moving over his body without any hesitation, checking his arms, shoulders, chest, and waist. Anyone who thought goddesses were always modest would have changed their mind right then. August barely had a chance to think about resisting before the inspection turned into outright groping. How did you even track me? August asked. He hadn't noticed anyone following him. From the recruitment gathering, one goddess answered without shame. Some of them led successful familias, while others were still struggling to attract their first few members. Demeter stepped out from a side street with a pleased smile. Even the larger familias send people to those gatherings, she explained. If they notice a child with potential, they make an offer immediately. Did you really think only small gods sit around waiting for recruits? The major familias pick up 1 or 2 promising faces whenever the opportunity appears. August understood. He had been marked the moment he entered the plaza. We finally caught you alone and away from Hestia, said a goddess wearing a light top and a flowing dancer's skirt. Her fingers continued exploring him as she spoke. It would be a waste of all that waiting if we didn't inspect you properly. Exactly. Hestia guards you like you're some kind of treasure. We never get a chance to come close. Now that we've finally cornered you, we need to see what this child from another world is really made of. The goddesses looked like they might eat him alive. August breathed in the mingled scent of divine skin and expensive perfume, then let out a tired sigh. Do you really have to do this? Of course, one goddess said, her eyes narrowing. Do you know how much Hestia brags about you? Or how jealous we got when we heard you punched Ishtar? And then you took Hestia's hand after the war game, like some hero in a story. She clenched her fists. You have no idea how jealous we all are. Nothing hurt more than watching another goddess get the heroic romance they wished for. August kept giving Hestia moments straight out of a legend, while the others could only watch from the sidelines. Another goddess pressed both hands against her flushed cheeks. And last night, when you rejected that little Paolum under the fireworks. You looked so handsome. I want to confess to you and be rejected like that too. It was romantic and tragic at the same time. August stared at her. Jealous goddesses were one thing. Now it seemed there were masochists in the mix too. Demeter saw his blank look and quietly laughed. Last night's recording spread faster than any of us expected. Hestia's little drama became excellent entertainment. They don't just enjoy watching a good story. They want the chance to star in one. August finally understood. The goddesses didn't really enjoy being rejected. They just wanted their own memorable stories, the kind people could record, replay, and share around Rio. Well, I wouldn't mind playing the heroine for a change, Demeter admitted. She twirled a strand of blonde hair around her finger, and looked unusually shy as she pictured her own tragic romance. August gave up trying to understand their logic. Forget it. I'm tired. He pulled himself free from the hands still wandering over his body. Wait. Don't leave me. One of the goddesses switched roles instantly. Her sly smile disappeared, replaced by the sad look of someone being left by a lover. She reached out, as if desperate to stop him from leaving. Even Demeter and the others stared at her. Where had that line come from? Then they saw the recording stone glowing in her hand. August saw it as well. These goddesses clearly had no intention of letting him leave without giving them a scene, so he decided to indulge one of them and use the opportunity to escape. He turned back, lowered his eyes, and started a sad piece of background music. Goddess, take care of yourself. Knowing exactly where the recording was aimed, August turned on his heel and walked away. His slow steps, sad expression, and the music drifting through the alley made the silly situation feel like a farewell between two lovers who would never meet again. The goddess froze. She hadn't expected him to answer in character. By the time she recovered, August was already disappearing around the corner. Damn it. I forgot my next line. She grabbed the recording stone and replayed the clip. August's calm delivery and the sad music made the farewell feel real. Sadly, her own shocked silence had ruined the ending. August, wait. Come back. She ran after him with the stone in hand, determined to record the scene again. Demeter remained rooted to the spot. He actually played along. If I'd known he was this cooperative, I would have prepared my own script, another goddess wailed. She hiked up her skirt and sprinted after him. The others quickly reached the same conclusion. Even if they couldn't be the real heroine, they could still act out their own dramatic scene like the one with Lilaruka. The entire group poured out of the alley, only to find the street empty. August was already gone. A few quick jumps took him through the nearby streets, putting several blocks between him and the goddesses chasing after him. Goddesses are all out of their minds, he muttered. Luckily, the new base was nearby. By the time he reached the Southwest District, the former Apollo Familia mansion had already turned into the Hestia Familia's home. The goddess of the hearth's emblem now hung proudly over the front gate. Lord August. Vera and Fear flew over from the mansion to open the gate for him. Note, Vera is the siren August saved in Knossos. I usually refer to her simply as the siren, but now that Ray is involved, that could get confusing. Thanks for watching the place. It's the least we could do. Fear answered with a bright smile. As August walked between them, both Xenos noticed the mix of perfume scents on his clothes. Lord August, are you sure everything is all right? Fear pointed toward him. Oh, that. August looked down at his clothes. A group of goddesses ambushed me on the way back. Last night's recording must have set them off. They finally caught me alone and decided to inspect me thoroughly. Vera and Fear exchanged glances, trying not to laugh. For a second, they had thought August was looking for a different kind of trouble. But instead, trouble had found him. August gestured for them to lead the way inside. The mansion had been completely remodeled. Its finer features remained, but Apollo's gaudy taste was gone, replaced by furnishings better suited to the Familia's needs. Captain. Yui Hirasawa ran over as soon as she heard him come in. Today was the official inspection and move-in day, and the 3 girls August had brought were already helping Hestia organize the mansion. Yui slowed down before reaching him, her nose twitching. Captain, why do you smell like so much perfume? All the girls working in the nearby rooms immediately poked their heads into the hallway. Perfume? What perfume? Hestia bristled. Had August already gone out and found another woman? August walked over and lightly flicked her forehead. Blame yourself. You spread that recording from last night, and I got surrounded by a pack of curious goddesses on the way home. Hee. Hestia quickly put on an innocent smile. Her jealousy disappeared as soon as she realized the ambush was her own doing. Yui, and Nodoka had already watched Ray's recording from the night before. The fireworks, Lily's confession, August's rejection, and the perfectly timed music made them feel like they had just finished watching an idol drama. They still felt a bit sorry for Lily. Hestia, on the other hand, looked very pleased. Her child was now impressive enough to make the other goddesses jealous, which was exactly what she wanted. August shook his head. I have to say, those goddesses are a pack of hyenas. They have no sense of personal boundaries. If I'd stayed another minute, they probably would have started stripping me in the alley. That's just how they are, Hestia agreed. Compared to the other goddesses, Hestia considered herself a model of decency. She would never let anyone touch her without permission, god or otherwise. Of course, knowing exactly how jealous the others became whenever she showed off August only made her enjoy it more. She clapped her hands and raised her voice. Anyway, our new Familia home is officially open. That means it's time for a housewarming party. Yeah. Party. Yui cheered. She was already back to her usual job, as the Familia's one-person mood maker. August looked around the mansion. Nearly everyone was there. He turned toward Ray. What about the others? LYD and Gro just got back, Ray said, sounding tired. They're going through the information they found. Their expedition into the deeper floors had not been easy. Fear nodded. They also ran into the same strange monsters Miss Lilaruka mentioned. They need to sort out their notes before they can give us a full report. Tell them I said thanks. They've been working hard. August knew the Xenos had been training, while looking for more of their kind in the dungeon. After the Familia moved into the mansion, the old church was left behind as a secret refuge for them. We'll hold the party outside, Hestia decided. Some of the larger Xenos won't fit comfortably inside the mansion, and I want everyone included. She looked toward Ray. They're part of this Familia too. Ray bowed her head in quiet thanks. Being treated as a real partner, instead of a burden, meant more to her than she could say. Hestia glanced at the remaining daylight. Yui, take August around and show him the mansion. The rest of us still have plenty of organizing to finish. Leave it to me. Yui beamed. Captain, this way. August followed her. He had signed off on the renovations, but the mansion had changed so much that he needed to learn its layout all over again, especially the bedrooms and living spaces. You're reliable as always, Yui. He gave her a thumbs up. Really? Yui's face lit up with joy. New event. Bulk upload of 6 chapters, if we hit 800 Power Stones this week. Every 200 Power Stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 172, Chapter 172, New Familia Members. 1981 words. Thank you all so much for your incredible support this week. With the war preparations demanding massive stockpiles of resources back in the Type Moon universe, August paused his medical work in Rio. This gave him time to walk through the renovated mansion with Yui. They went through each room. Most of Apollo's old furniture was already gone, except for the bookshelves and a few solid pieces worth keeping. Whenever they needed more bedding, towels, or other linens, they could buy them in bulk from August's world. This was much easier than waiting for the hand-woven goods usually sold in Rio. When they stepped into the courtyard, Yui stopped and pointed toward the front gate. Huh? There are 2 people outside. I think I saw them during the war game. One was the healer Lily captured, and the other looked like she was giving orders. Hey! Daphne Loros looked Yui over and quickly judged her to be support staff rather than a frontline fighter. Hello. Next to her, Cassandra Alien gave a timid greeting. What are you two doing here? August asked. After the Apollo Familia broke up, he thought its former members would either spread out across Rio or leave the city. He never expected 2 of its stronger adventurers to show up at his door. We actually came to apply, Cassandra admitted, her cheeks coloring with embarrassment. They wanted a stable Familia, and Hestia had already shown she was fair. Joining her felt much safer than risking their futures with another unknown god. "You want to join our familia?" Yui asked, openly surprised. From what she remembered, these two had been their enemies in the war game. August noticed her confusion. "That's normal. Gods lead their familias, so if a god makes a selfish choice, everyone gets caught up in it. Unless the adventurers are truly cruel, most are just regular people trying to get by. They don't hold personal grudges when they move from one familia to another." He knew Lily's horror stories about places like Ishtar Familia had left a strong impression on Yui. In reality, most familias were not locked in bloody feuds. Unless one of them was filled with sadistic lunatics, in which case wiping them out counted as pest control, most adventurers were only there to earn a living. "Oh, I understand now." Yui nodded thoughtfully. So that's what Lily meant when she called most adventurers uncultured thugs. August's face twitched. He gently tapped Yui on the head to remind her that two of those so-called thugs were right in front of them. Then he turned back to Daphne and Cassandra. "If you want to join, you're welcome." Daphne stared at him. "Just like that?" August looked at both of them. Daphne was a skilled battlefield commander with good judgment, and Cassandra was a talented healer whose prophetic dreams suggested she had an even rarer gift. Both had shown their bravery during the war game. "You both have talent, and when things went bad, neither of you left your companions behind. Whatever familia you belonged to before means nothing to us." Everyone in Rio knew the Hestia familia almost never recruited new members. Most of its people had unusual backgrounds, and nobody really knew how they were chosen. If people heard that August was letting applicants in at the gate, adventurers would quickly start lining up outside the mansion. Daphne still seemed unable to believe her luck. August glanced toward the upper floor. A figure slipped through an open window, spread her wings, and landed lightly in the courtyard. Vera approached the gate and opened it. "Please come inside." Daphne and Cassandra froze. They had heard stories about intelligent monsters, but meeting one who spoke was something else. The siren in front of them acted calmly, like any person, but both adventurers could feel the strength she held. She could easily overpower either of them. "Hello. My name is Vera," she said with a gracious bow. Her companions among the Xenos had given her the name. "Please follow me." "All right." Still recovering from the shock, Daphne and Cassandra followed her into the mansion. Hestia and Lily were getting the main hall ready for the housewarming party. Daphne and Cassandra had lived in the Apollo mansion before, so they noticed the signs right away. Tables were being moved, decorations put up, and supplies carried out to the courtyard. "Oh, I remember you too." Hestia looked surprised to see Vera escorting two former members of the Apollo familia. She also remembered that both possessed useful abilities. "August said we could join," Daphne explained. She straightened and gave a formal introduction. "I'm Daphne Loros, formerly of the Apollo familia. I'm currently an unaffiliated adventurer. I'm Cassandra Alien." "The same." Both girls looked nervous. Getting August's approval was one thing, but Hestia was the goddess whose choice really counted. "All right. If August recommended you, then you're in." Hestia looked at them with clear satisfaction. Having a skilled commander and a healer would fill two obvious gaps in the familia. Relief showed on their faces. Thanks to August's recommendation, they were now part of one of the most mysterious familias in Rio. "Show me your backs." Hestia wasted no time. Within minutes, she had converted their fauna to her own, officially welcoming Daphne and Cassandra into the Hestia familia. "Not bad at all," she said after examining their statuses. Apollo had a decent eye for children, even if his judgment failed him everywhere else. She set the status sheets aside. "Since you're part of the familia now, we need to explain how things work here." "You already know about August, correct?" "Yes. The captain comes from another world," Daphne answered. Apollo told the executives while he was preparing for the war game. Apollo's plans relied a lot on August's unusual origins, so the Familia's commanders had always known about it. Good. That saves us some time, Hestia said. Most of our core members spend much of their daily lives in August's world. Lily pointed toward the girls helping farther inside the mansion. Yui, and Nodoka also come from another world. Our Familia follows a different path from most groups in Ora Rio. We use the dungeon, but we don't depend on it for everything. Daphne listened closely. What she heard matched the bits of information she had picked up before the war game. There's also the matter of money, Lily continued. Most of what August earns in the dungeon is spent on recovery potions and other supplies that get transferred to his world. People assume we're rich because they see how much we make, Hestia added. But the Familia itself doesn't keep much valise on hand. If you need weapons, armor, or replacement equipment, you'll usually have to earn the money yourselves. Daphne and Cassandra stared at her. They had always thought the Hestia Familia was rich. August's expeditions brought in a lot of money, but now they learned that almost none of it stayed in Ora Rio. Daphne thought it over. Yui, and Nodoka were civilians from another world, so they didn't need adventuring gear. August's weapons and supplies also came from outside Ora Rio. The money wasn't disappearing, it was just being turned into resources for a different battlefield. Once she realized this, everything made sense. As long as the Familia isn't operating at a loss, we can fund our own equipment, Daphne said. It may slow our progress, but it's manageable. August's earnings didn't cover their personal expenses, but at least they weren't going into debt. Daphne and Cassandra could still grow at their own pace. How much of our dungeon income do we need to turn over? Daphne asked next. Neither Lily nor Hestia had mentioned anything about membership fees, maintenance costs, or required payments. Lily froze. The thought had never even crossed her mind. August's payouts were so generous that her share always covered everything she needed. As a supporter, her expenses were modest, mostly fresh crossbow bolts and the occasional replacement backpack. Keep whatever you earn, Hestia said with a dismissive wave. You don't have to hand anything over. That won't work, Daphne replied at once. Hestia tilted her head. The captain's income supports the Familia in ways we can't match, and Miss Arde already contributes to its operations, Daphne explained. Cassandra and I are new. If we live here without contributing anything, we'll always feel like guests. She knew there was a difference between just living in a place and truly belonging to a Familia. She and Cassandra hadn't helped build this home. If they took its protection without doing their part, they'd always feel like outsiders, no matter what fauna they had. Feeling like a guest? Hestia chuckled. You don't need to worry about that. August kills enough monsters to throw the dungeon into chaos, but unless the dungeon itself decides to retaliate, most Familias know better than to interfere with him. Hestia could tell how badly Daphne wanted to prove herself. Even so, loyalty was not something she could accept on enthusiasm alone. She needed time to judge both recruits for herself. Travel between worlds was not a privilege handed to every new member. Lily had been with the Familia from the beginning, and had earned August's trust. Daphne and Cassandra would have to do the same. Until then, they would remain in Ora Rio, and help protect everything the Familia had built there. If contributing matters that much to you, then give whatever amount you think is fair. You too can also take responsibility for the mansion's daily upkeep and logistics. Hestia compromised, patting Daphne's shoulder. Use the money for food, repairs, household supplies, and emergency equipment. That way it stays here and benefits everyone. Daphne and Cassandra agreed right away. Now they had a clear job and a real way to help out in their new home. Lady Hestia, may I ask something else? Cassandra, usually shy, suddenly looked very curious. Do you like Captain August? The two of you seem a lot like a couple. Her eyes brightened. And after what happened last night, are you really comfortable with someone else confessing to him? Hestia blinked. The girl had barely joined the familia, and was already asking about its most complicated relationship. Of course I like him, and yes, I'm fine with what happened last night, Hestia answered. I knew what Lily intended. I wouldn't have allowed the situation to go that far otherwise. Her feelings about the confession were complicated, but she had let Lily speak honestly. She also knew August's relationships would never be simple. Hestia smiled at the two new members. But if either of you decides to confess to him one day, prepare yourself for rejection. She said it with a smile, but the message was clear. Liking August wasn't against the rules, but expecting him to return those feelings was something else. Daphne opened her mouth to deny having any interest in the captain, then noticed Cassandra shifting nervously beside her. Lady Hestia. Cassandra fidgeted with her fingers. You wouldn't mind if we liked him? I wouldn't mind at all, Hestia said. I'd rather you fall for August than let some male god catch your attention and lead you into another disaster. Daphne got it right away. She and Cassandra had already experienced what happened when an obsessive god treated his children like possessions. Apollo's desires had destroyed his own familia and forced every member to suffer the consequences. Daphne crossed her arms and muttered quietly. She has a point. Better for us to fall for the captain than for another male god to fall for us. New event. Bulk upload of 6 chapters if we hit 800 power stones this week. Every 200 power stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 173, Chapter 173, Her name is Hestia. 2011 words. Thank you all so much for your incredible support this week. The conversation about Apollo faded quickly. None of the girls wanted to give anyone odd ideas by bringing up that topic. A familia should grow the normal way. After the conversation ended, the Hestia familia threw a housewarming party. The courtyard filled up with their members, the Xenos, and friends from other familias. Cheers! Everyone raised their cups and celebrated together. August ended up acting as host, but he could only talk to so many people at once. The girls soon gathered in their own groups to chat, which gave him a good chance to sneak away. He climbed up to the roof and sat under the open sky, looking at the stars. For once, his mind was calm. After a while, LYD came up from the stairs. The lizardman saw August sitting by himself, looking off into the distance like he was wishing for something far away. LYD didn't really get the mood, but he still walked over and handed him a small pouch. Here. Inside were several unusual seeds gathered from the dungeon. Thanks. August put the seeds in his spatial backpack, and went back to looking at the stars. How are you settling in? Pretty well. LYD sat down beside him. I've never seen so many humans living together before. And I never knew the surface could feel this warm. A wide smile spread across his reptilian face. LYD's greatest wish had always been to live beneath the open sky instead of hiding in the dungeon's darkness, constantly fleeing with his people from one shelter to another. August had made that wish possible. Then enjoy it. August didn't press for more. They both knew the Xenos' peace wouldn't last. Aurario's fear and anger had just shifted to the Deadless family for now. Once the threat was gone, people would start blaming the Xenos again. The conflict was only delayed. By the way, August. LYD suddenly leaned closer. Which woman did you fall for first? He had witnessed the confession the previous night, and the question had been eating at him ever since. Who did I fall for? August looked at him in surprise. He hadn't expected the honest-looking lizardman to start fishing for romantic gossip. Still, he had no reason to hide his answer. He turned toward the moon. If we're talking about real attraction, body and heart, the first person I ever fell for was Hestia. Lyd showed no surprise. Everyone knew August loved Hestia, just as everyone knew the goddess loved him. In a sense, the two had built each other into what they were now. But shouldn't it have been goddess Hephaestus? She was the one who helped you first. Don't you like her? Lyd asked. A certain goddess had asked him to test the waters, so Lyd forced himself to keep asking questions. August paused at the mention of Hephaestus, then laughed. Because Hephaestus could never love me with nothing held back. His gaze returned to the moon. Lyd, you know I'm not from this world. Lyd nodded. August's otherworldly origins were no secret among the Xenos. Maybe one day, I'll disappear without warning and never find my way back. August spoke more softly. If that happens, the only person left who could remember me forever might be Hestia. A goddess's love carried centuries of weight. Once a virgin goddess gave her heart, that choice could not be changed. Even if memories faded, the feeling itself would remain engraved deeper than memory. August knew Hestia's love for him was still growing. Lyd stared at him, momentarily lost. What did he mean by Hestia being the only one who could remember him? If I disappear and leave Hestia behind, we could end up in different worlds, living in different times. August looked across the endless night sky. We could stand on different worlds and gaze up at the same stars. His expression grew tender. And I would know that somewhere, beneath the sky of another world, a beautiful goddess is still waiting for me. Her name is Hestia. His quiet voice seemed to gather every trace of longing Hestia might one day carry. So that's it. Lyd finally understood why a certain goddess had already lost before the contest even began. Forgive me, Lady Hephaestus. Lady Hestia's love runs deeper than yours. And Hestia really could wait for him. August had already considered everything, even the possibility of being separated across worlds. Lyd sighed to himself. What a hopeless pair. The girls gathered one floor below had heard every word. Hestia knew exactly what August meant. She would remember him for centuries, and the time they shared would always be the most precious part of her long life. That memory would never fade. Even if she died and returned to heaven, she would still wait for the men she loved. Ugh. That's so embarrassing. Hestia hid her blushing face. August's words revealed both his fear for their future, and the depth of his feelings for her. They hadn't crossed the final line in their relationship yet. The fact that he was her familia's child complicated things, but the bigger problem was the difference between them. August was mortal. No matter how much he loved her, age would eventually claim him. His body would weaken, his life would end, and Hestia would remain, carrying every memory alone. It's both sad and romantic, one of the girls murmured. Anyone who fell in love with August might one day face that same separation. For a mortal woman, it would be the greatest test imaginable. They weren't goddesses. They didn't have eternity. Some might even die before their wait was over. That mix of sadness and devotion ended the competition before it even started. Artemis listened in silence, intrigued by an emotion she had never explored. This kind of love could last for thousands of years. It brought loneliness and sadness, but just thinking about it made something stir inside her. How did you manage to land someone this good? Artemis asked suddenly. For one dangerous moment, she wanted to steal August for herself. Hestia didn't deserve to have it all. Jealousy took over Artemis, filling her with the urge to make her old friend experience the ultimate betrayal. Even a virgin goddess had the right to find someone she loved. I didn't do anything, Hestia stammered. Then her face softened. If August never came back, I could wait. 1,000 years. 10,000 years. She had already come to the same conclusion. August was afraid he might disappear someday, but Hestia had thought about that too. That's why both of them held back so much. Don't say something so grim. Hephaestus reached over and knocked Hestia on the head. Why did this girl always have to make things sound like a tragic story? Even so, Hephaestus couldn't deny her envy. Hestia had won August's love in a way most goddesses never could. If things were the other way around, Hephaestus wasn't sure she could love him with the same certainty. As the goddess of the forge, she had always let reason guide her, even in love. So this is what has been holding the two of you back, Artemis said. No wonder your relationship hasn't progressed. She envied Hestia enough to consider stealing August, but she also understood that cheap seduction and manipulative tricks would only earn his contempt. August might not be a bad choice at all. A new thought took root in Artemis's mind. She could take him for herself and leave Hestia with nowhere to cry. Hestia's anti-NTR antenna sprang to life. Someone is trying to steal my man. Who is it? Her eyes narrowed as she scanned the women around her. Someone here had developed improper intentions toward August, and Hestia's instincts had detected it. It had to be one of her fellow goddesses. Only a handful of the mortal girls even saw August that way. No one revealed anything under her scrutiny, so Hestia remained on high alert. The group kept chatting as if nothing had happened. No one wanted to break the uneasy peace by saying what was really on their mind. When she failed to identify the culprit, Hestia decided not to pursue the matter. Enough of all this. Eat, drink, and enjoy yourselves. At her urging, everyone went back to the housewarming party. Laughter soon filled the courtyard again. While the Hestia Familia celebrated, several figures were running for their lives through Knossos. They raced through the artificial labyrinth until they reached a hidden passage, where an exhausted, white-haired man sat alone, hammering a pickaxe into the wall. Barca Perdix, the older brother of Dix Perdix, stopped when he noticed them. Why have you come here? The newcomers belonged to separate branches of the Daedalus family. They were not distant relatives or outsiders, but direct descendants whose bloodlines had split into different houses over the centuries. These men ran the family branches outside Rio. They had come into the city through secret paths, only to find one of the main heirs calmly digging in Knossos while their bloodline was falling apart. Barca, why are you still hiding down here? One of them demanded. The captain of the Hestia Familia is trampling all over us. Barca ignored how upset they were. His only purpose was to complete the dream passed down through the family. Yet now these men expected him to leave his work and kill August, the otherworlder who had turned Rio against them. Even if Barca agreed, who among his remaining followers would volunteer to face that man? And you expect me to handle it for you? Barca finally looked at them. Don't forget, none of you came to Rio to carry out the duty passed down by our ancestors. You don't even live here. You've spent years enjoying comfortable lives because my brother and I remained behind to shoulder everything. That's why Barca looked down on these relatives. Before Dix died, the two brothers were the only ones in the family with real strength and authority. They were also the only two who had reached level 4. Otherwise, how could they have taken their relatives' eyes and turned them into Daedalus orbs without anyone stopping them? You, the branch family leaders tried to argue, but Barca continued before they could speak. Besides, your assassin network is gone. Barca understood their situation. Every group and resource they once controlled had already fallen apart. The Daedalus bloodline was now being hunted all over Rio, and August had personally destroyed several of their strongest bases himself. The assassins who survived knew things had changed. Some had left the family and joined new familias. Others went into hiding, not wanting to be called enemies of humanity or die for a lost cause. Without those assassins, the Daedalus family was nothing but a name. You'll regret this, Barca Perdix, one of the men roared. Regret it? Barca snorted coldly. I won't regret anything. He tightened his grip around the pickaxe. And don't forget, I am the head of the Daedalus family. The real power in the family belonged to whoever stayed in Knossos and kept working on their ancestors' mission. The others had no answer. They couldn't afford to antagonize Barca, so they left without another word, their anger still simmering. Humph, useless cowards. Barca watched them disappear into the darkness. Still, he knew that he and August would meet eventually. That man had killed his younger brother. Barca had not forgotten the debt. August. I'll make you wish you were dead. His face twisted with hate, but he kept working. He lifted the pickaxe and struck the labyrinth wall, carving out a new passage. Somewhere far above Knossos, August sneezed a few times in a row. New event. Bulk upload of 6 chapters, if we hit 800 power stones this week. Every 200 power stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 174, Chapter 174, Establishing a Foothold in Snowfield. 1,381 words. Thank you all so much for your incredible support this week. The housewarming party didn't last long. By the next morning, August had already sent Ui Hirasawa, and Nodoka Manabe back to their original world. Once that was done, he started getting ready for his third destination, the city of Snowfield. As soon as he returned to the Type Moon world, he got to work. It didn't take long before he bought a large cannery on the edge of the city to use as their first base. Oh, so this is Snowfield. Inside a spacious personnel carrier, Commander James raised a pair of binoculars and surveyed the surrounding city. At last, they had secured a foothold deep inside the territory. Snowfield might have been located near Las Vegas rather than anywhere close to the nation's capital, but the area was more than suitable for establishing a military encampment. Yes. This is Snowfield. August studied the streets through the window. This quiet city was about to become the setting for another Type Moon story. The male aide returned from outside. Reporting. Negotiations have concluded. Good. Commander James put down his binoculars and looked at the signed papers in his hand. They now own the property. Do you want the premises cleared? Clear it. Follow the local procedures and make sure everything is handled cleanly. Yes, sir. The aide accepted the folder and headed back toward the factory. August watched him leave before turning to Commander James. We have the location. What comes next? Securing it, of course. Commander James looked toward the cannery. We still need to survey the surrounding terrain, identify every potential threat, and seize control of several suitable military positions before anyone has time to react. His attention then shifted to a more unusual concern. And then there are the Magi. Commander James was deeply curious about the existence of magecraft. This was not Rio, where familiars operated beneath the protection of their gods. Frankly, if he lined up the city's Magi for target practice, he doubted many of them could claim they had done nothing to deserve it. His forces knew how to fight conventional armies. Magi, however, were an entirely new class of enemy. Fine. Handle it however you see fit. August glanced at the purchase factory again. Still, I have to admire the nerve. You refused to trade with gold and paid them using their own currency instead. Why would we waste gold? Commander James scoffed. Gold is a strategic resource. If we're going to pay, we'll pay with real money. He grinned widely. Once we win, the dollars we print will become legal tender. Who will still have the courage to call them counterfeit? They had not been given much time to prepare. Mobilizing and transporting large quantities of gold would have required resources they could not afford to waste. Instead, August had supplied them with a single banknote from this timeline. They had reproduced it perfectly. They made the engraving plates and built the printing presses. They copied every security feature and detail, so they could print huge amounts of this world's money. In the end, they bought the factory with piles of worthless paper. It was quick, efficient, and utterly shameless. More importantly, the money could be spent. And if anyone questioned their value later, they could raise the issue once the occupation was over. Besides, according to our intelligence, Commander James pulled out another report. If our analysis is correct, human order itself may come after us. The document contained the conclusions reached by researchers in August's world. According to the laws of the Type Moon universe, humanity possessed a collective unconscious known as Alea, one half of the counterforce, and the mechanism responsible for preserving human order. No one knew how that collective will would react to humans arriving from an entirely separate universe. Commander James preferred that it leave them alone. If it decided to interfere, he was ready to take much more drastic action against the planet. We're all outsiders, he continued. This world has no reason to welcome us. So the best strategy is to spend as little as possible while extracting the greatest possible return. Gold was still a necessary resource. Spending a fortune on a factory they might abandon within weeks would have been idiotic. Trading paper money for a foothold was exactly the kind of deal they were looking for. That part is true. August rubbed his chin. My main concern is Alea sending counter-guardians after us. TCH, arrogant bastards with power. Commander James looked at them with clear contempt. He understood the stories and rules of this universe. From the perspective of someone born in the real world, he had little respect for any of its supernatural authorities. Immortals, gods, magi, it made no difference. To him, most of them were just selfish parasites who chased their own goals and saw regular people as disposable. He didn't see Snowfield as some kind of game or heroic trial. The civilians were one matter. The magi and every so-called higher being standing above them were another. If they became enemies, Commander James had no objection to eliminating every last one. Before their discussion could continue, Hestia tapped lightly against the side of the vehicle. The cameras around us are watching. She lowered the magazine in her hands and glanced toward the nearby intersections. Their sudden arrival, their suspicious backgrounds, and the abrupt purchase of a large industrial property had clearly caught the attention of whoever ran the city. Several cameras had already rotated toward them. Commander James frowned. He knew how Snowfield operated. The police, military, and local magi maintained a hidden cooperative relationship. All of that had been included in the operational plan. Even though they had just arrived and bought an old cannery, the local authorities were already watching them. They noticed us already. Commander James's eyes narrowed with interest. He thought the people in charge of Snowfield would take longer to notice. Instead, local surveillance picked them up almost as soon as the deal was done. Interesting. At least Snowfield's hidden rulers were competent. What they had yet to realize was that August had not arrived with a small entourage and 2 goddesses. He had brought an army. Tens of thousands of soldiers and enough heavy weaponry to turn Snowfield into a real war zone. Can you trace where the surveillance signal is coming from? Commander James asked. Hestia picked up a red laser pointer and aimed it at the city map hanging beside the window. Somewhere around here. The marked location belonged to a private surveillance network. It did not correspond to the police department or any known military installation. But there's another observer. Hestia moved the pointer toward a second location. The signal came from another building in a separate district, one with an unusual internal structure. Francesca Prelati. August guessed. He could already imagine the immortal troublemaker watching them from somewhere inside the city. Francesca lived for chaos and amusement. It would have been more surprising if their arrival had failed to catch her attention. If it's only the Magi, I'm not concerned. August settled back in his chair. But since they've already started snooping around, we may as well teach them some manners. He opened the spatial backpack and released a compact drone. The machine slipped out of the vehicle and rose into the air, heading directly toward the identified location. No one outside noticed it. The military technology of August's world was centuries ahead of its time. Even a weapon small enough to overlook could erase an entire building before anyone inside knew they were under attack. A warning from a drone isn't a bad idea, Commander James said. Still, I bet that woman is already planning to pull us into one of her traps. If she won't make the first move, neither will we. August watched the drone's signal on the monitor. This is only a warning. This was just their first move after arriving in this world. New event. Bulk upload of 6 chapters if we hit 800 Power Stones this week. Every 300 Power Stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 175, Chapter 175, bonus, The Outsiders are a little trigger. 1,584 words. We're officially starting the Fate/Strange Fake arc. I took extra care to improve the writing quality for this arc, so I hope you enjoy what's coming. The support for this fanfic isn't what it used to be, and every bit of support helps keep the story moving forward. So if you're enjoying the story, I'd really appreciate it if you could drop some power stones. Thank you for reading and enjoy. An unmanned airship was moored to the roof of a certain building in Snowfield. Calling it an airship was generous, it was more of a mobile workshop, packed with magical artifacts Francesca had gathered over the years. Inside the building beneath it, a woman lounged across an enormous, extravagantly soft bed. So that man has appeared again. Francesca Prelati loved nothing more than listening to people scream, and watching them reveal the ugliest parts of themselves. She was also the greatest troublemaker operating behind the scenes in Snowfield, so naturally, she had noticed the new arrivals. Since one of the goddesses blinded her during their last meeting, Francesca had been desperate to learn more about them. But there was almost nothing to discover. A strange man had appeared alongside 2 fully armed goddesses. Francesca had barely glanced at them from a distance before her eyeballs were crushed inside her skull. She had only recently finished repairing them. Now all she could sense was the familiar presence of that otherworldly man, along with several new human signatures that did not belong in Snowfield. It seems he brought even more strangers this time. Francesca rubbed her chin. That encounter had killed Francesca's playful mood. Something dangerous had entered Snowfield, and she had no intention of provoking it again. One of them had been a goddess. A single brush with her power was more than enough. Instead, Francesca ordered her subordinate, Faldius Dioland, to investigate through remote surveillance. What they found seemed normal at first, a vehicle parked outside a newly bought factory. But Francesca could tell right away it was a ghost vehicle, assembled from scrubbed parts, stripped of identifying marks, and connected to no official records. You people are far too cautious. Francesca stared at the screen, surprised. Who would bring a custom, untraceable vehicle just to buy some property? Even worse, the vehicle seemed to have some kind of magical countermeasure. If she tried to inspect it with mana, the spell would probably lead right back to her. Still, Francesca believed she had stayed hidden. A high-pitched ringing reached her ears. Francesca felt something racing through the sky toward her, a pilotless machine similar to her airship. They found me. That was fast. Francesca jumped out of bed and turned on the defensive magecraft in her workshop. Unfortunately, the approaching weapon relied on something far more basic. Gunpowder. A sharp whistle cut through the air. Boom. The whole room shook as the drone exploded against the building. Stone, glass, and expensive furniture flew out, leaving a huge hole in the wall. Francesca stared at the destruction. Well, that was impressive. It was the first time anyone had attacked her with such a purely physical weapon. And that attack had been aimed straight at her. My defensive magecraft couldn't stop it. What kind of weapon was that? Francesca looked around at the shattered room. Those outsiders were remarkably short-tempered. More importantly, her workshop's defensive magecraft had failed to stop a single unmanned flying machine from tearing the place apart. Damn. There's nothing I can do with people like that. Francesca gave up on the idea of fighting back. This was a warning. If I actually went over there, they'd probably blow my head off before I finished saying hello. She lived for entertainment, but she could recognize danger when it stood in front of her. The people inside that factory possessed the means to kill her, and they seemed ready to do it. Forget it. I'll stay away and let them play among themselves. She sighed. I'll go bother my little champions of justice instead. Francesca hadn't found an easy target among the outsiders, but she still had plenty of subordinates to mess with. For example, Snowfield's chief of police, Orlando Reeve. The explosion quickly caught the attention of the authorities. Chief Orlando. An unidentified explosion has occurred at this location. Investigators are already on the way. A female secretary hurried into the office and delivered her report. Most people in the Snowfield Police Department were just regular humans. Only the higher-ups and a few specialists knew the city's secrets, and the secretary was one of them. The department kept a close watch on mana levels in Snowfield and tracked any suspicious activity from the Magi gathering there. An unexpected explosion was sure to get noticed, especially now. The summoning period had started, and from tomorrow, every moment would bring the city closer to the ritual known as the Holy Grail War. The secretary set the report on Orlando's desk and showed him where the blast had happened. Orlando stopped as soon as he saw the address. He immediately recognized who lived there. Someone attacked that damned old monster. It seems this situation is already moving in a direction no one can reverse. Orlando's face grew tense. This was serious. Everyone in Snowfield's secret world knew who lived in that building. If Francesca was attacked, it meant a new group had shown up, bold enough to challenge the woman who acted like she ran things from behind the scenes. The only question left was who did it. Did the weapon contain mana? Orlando asked. No. Our current assessment is that the attack was carried out by a suicide drone. The secretary placed the collected information in front of him. A weapon like that shouldn't exist in this era, at least not in such a small and effective form. I see. Orlando immediately lost interest. If there was no magecraft involved, it wasn't his problem. Apparently the old woman has more enemies than I thought. Orlando laughed under his breath. Hearing that Francesca had been attacked did not worry him in the slightest. He was more inclined to celebrate than look into it. Leave it alone. That incident has nothing to do with our objective. There are already enough Magi entering Snowfield. The Holy Grail War is about to begin. Focus on that. Orlando put the matter out of his mind. Yes, sir. The secretary bowed. The department would call the explosion a gang attack and move on. There was no point in wasting resources on something that didn't threaten their plans. The other Magi in Snowfield thought the same way. Once they saw there was no mana from the explosion, they ignored it too. August didn't care about their suspicions. He and the military had already started clearing out the factory. 300 soldiers from the advance force now occupied the cannery. Commander James stood with the first group of troops, looking very pleased with himself. He wasn't the only senior officer there. The chief of logistics and several other high-ranking staff had come along too. The soldiers moved through the factory, taking apart old machines, clearing out storage and running new cables. It was just a temporary base, but everyone already had a job to do. Reporting. A soldier ran over and saluted. We've acquired computers manufactured in this world. A few more soldiers followed behind him, carrying desktop towers, monitors, routers, and boxes of local computer parts. They had bought every kind they could get. Good. The chief of logistics turned toward his technical team. Set up the local systems. Yes, sir. The technicians got started right away. Their job was to put together computers from this world and hook them up to the city's network. Once those machines made a real local Wi-Fi signal, the soldiers could connect their own hidden hardware and work from a distance. The local computers would act as a bridge, letting them slip into Snowfield's communication networks and slowly take control of the signals around them. Nearby, a few researchers in white coats checked out the factory and took environmental samples. They were there to study the conditions of this world, look for any biological or physical differences, and gather intelligence on the surrounding region. Everyone had something to do. Looks like everything's going smoothly. August glanced around at everyone hard at work, then sighed. They all had something to do. He was the only one left standing around, and the boredom was starting to wear on him. It's almost time for you to show up anyway. Commander James saw August standing around and laughed. If you're that bored, go for a walk. He put both hands on August's back and nudged him toward the warehouse exit. The soldiers had already set up a defensive perimeter around the factory. Anyone who tried to get close would be spotted and stopped long before reaching the buildings. The two men had barely stepped outside when a familiar figure floated into view. Hestia came down toward them, almost bouncing with excitement. Behind her was Lilaruka Arde, and in Lily's hands was someone she seemed to have caught somewhere in the city. Hestia spread her arms, grinning like she had already won. TADA. New event. Bulk upload of 6 chapters if we hit 800 Power Stones this week. Every 300 Power Stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 176, Chapter 176, The World's Rejection. 1,479 words. What is this? August stared at the person Lily had dragged back. The two of them had gone out for a walk and somehow returned with a captive. The captive seemed to be a mun. A local specialty of this world, Lily announced. A magus. She pushed the man forward. He was tied up so tightly he could hardly move. More importantly, there was a strange pattern on the back of his hand. Command spells. August blinked in surprise. They had only just left the factory, but already managed to capture a magus chosen for the Holy Grail War. Those are command spells. Commander James leaned closer, his eyes widening when he saw the markings. And we found this, Hestia smiled and produced a small key. August froze again. The key to the gate of Babylon. One short trip, and they had taken everything. Hestia and Lily hadn't just captured the magus meant to summon Archer, they had stolen his summoning catalyst along with him. They showed the man no mercy. Wow! Commander James stared at the key with open admiration, only to realize something a moment later. Wait! If this guy is here and you took Goldie's catalyst, who's supposed to summon him? Everyone fell silent. He had a point. We only grabbed him because he happened to be there, Hestia said with an innocent smile. What matters is that I've already figured out how the Holy Grail War summons servants. She pointed to the command spells on their captive's hand. You figured it out already. August had expected her to need more time, yet one trip had been enough for Hestia to unravel the entire summoning ritual. Does that mean we can summon servants now? Commander James asked. Having servants on their side seemed helpful. August saw no reason he should be the only one fighting. No. Hestia rejected the idea at once. Most of you don't have enough magical energy to sustain a servant. She reached down, grabbed the captured magus by his collar, and hauled him closer. The command spells connect their bearer to the Holy Grail War, and allow them to perform the summoning ritual. But the person conducting that ritual is supposed to belong to this world. We're outsiders. I'm a goddess, so summoning a servant wouldn't do much for me. That leaves August. Out of everyone here, he's the only one who qualifies. Hestia crossed her arms, sounding rather disappointed. Had the conditions allowed it, she would have happily performed the ritual herself. Unfortunately, the system imposed too many restrictions. Putting aside the lack of magical energy, Forcing the ritual could expose your bodies to possession by something powerful. Hestia continued. The modern magi of this world pose little threat to you. The same applies to most unusual humans. But this world still has gods. If one of them descended through the ritual and used your body as a vessel, you might stop being yourself. There was another problem. None of us belong to this world, so we don't know whether the command spells will even recognize you. Your bodies contain almost no mana, and the physical energy running through them might disrupt the summoning formula before it can activate. Hestia was not exaggerating the danger. August has resistance to both space and time. Those abilities give him a much better chance of enduring the ritual. He also has enough magical energy to keep a servant active. After considering everything, August was still their only real option. And if anything goes wrong during his summoning, he can kill himself and resurrect afterward. Hestia explained that his ability to resurrect was their last safety net. That's true. Commander James accepted the reasoning. Everyone knew what August was capable of. The rest of them possessed no magic and had no protection against divine possession. Even if they developed mana later, using an unfamiliar summoning ritual without proper safeguards would be asking for trouble. None of them wanted to step into a magic circle moments after entering this world, lose control of their body, and drop dead. That would be a pretty embarrassing way to end their expedition. Forget it, James. The chief of logistics emerged from the factory and waved the idea aside. Servants are unpredictable. We're running an army, not placing bets. Even though the servants in this world were very strong, the army did not see a need for them. Magecraft was still a mystery, and relying on a weapon they barely understood could cause more trouble than it was worth. The chief of logistics was not willing to take that chance. At least August had a goddess watching over him. The soldiers did not have that kind of protection. They preferred to trust their own abilities. If their weapons ever became strong enough, they could face the servants head-on and defeat them on their own. Still, keeping this magus here might cause trouble, the chief of logistics added. He had been around long enough to recognize someone important. Anyone involved in the Holy Grail War was bound to have eyes on him, and if he disappeared, sooner or later, someone would come looking. I'll erase his memories before we let him go, Hestia said. When the time comes, he'll carry out the summoning as planned. She had no reason to stop the Holy Grail War. Her interest lay in the summoning system itself, not in controlling what every participant chose to do. You should also examine this world's magecraft, Hestia suggested. My magic was too difficult for you to study, but their techniques are different. Humans created and developed them, so you may be able to understand them. The magi of this world had spent generations improving their own systems. Magic circuits, equivalent exchange, energy conversion, many of their methods resembled technologies that human science might eventually decipher. That's a good idea. Commander James no longer felt disappointed. They might not be able to summon servants themselves, but the summoning system, and the magecraft behind it were still worth studying. Their country had already encountered several forms of supernatural energy, and while mana did not exist naturally in their world, the researchers had grown used to working with unfamiliar power systems. Do you want the summoning formula? August asked. He walked over to the captive and studied him. We should scan him first. It looks like he has magic circuits. We can use mana to activate them and see what happens. Since they already had a magus in custody, they did not want to waste the chance. Even Hestia did not have magic circuits. But in this world, humans, mixed-blood species, and even certain animals could be born with something similar. Good. Commander James had no objection. He summoned a medical team on the spot. The soldiers took off the man's clothes, put him under special equipment, and activated his magic circuits while the researchers took notes. The factory already had portable X-ray machines and other scanners, and the team wanted to record as much as possible. The captured magus was fully examined before he even woke up. Meanwhile, August took possession of the command spells. As soon as all three marks showed up on the back of his hand, he understood why Hestia said no one else could use them. These were no ordinary magical markings. They were crystals of energy formed by the universe itself. Their power did not come from the planet's greater source, the mana gathered and released by the world, but from somewhere beyond it. The moment the foreign energy entered him, nausea twisted through August's stomach. The command spells had barely settled on the back of his hand, yet his entire body jerked as if something alien had penetrated beneath his skin. This world was rejecting him. August's expression tightened. There was no mistaking the pressure bearing down on him. So I really am the only one who can use them. For the first time, several of his passive abilities were being pushed to their limits at once. Spatial resistance. Temporal resistance. Those two abilities kept August in place, stopping the planet's timeline and nearby dimensions from absorbing him or forcing him out. Damn. This world really hates outsiders. August gritted his teeth. If his resistance gave out, the world could eject him from the universe on the spot. Keep fighting, Lord August. Lily cheered from the sidelines. Watching him struggle against the world itself had her practically glowing. Now this was how someone from another world ought to make an entrance. Anything less would have been disappointing. Easy for you to say. August rolled his eyes at her. New event. Bulk upload of 6 chapters if we hit 800 power stones this week. Every 300 power stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 177, Chapter 177, Who summons a servant by flexing this hard? 2,415 words. Present-day Earth, the U.S., inside a classified laboratory. Begin condensing the magical energy collected from World 3, the Fate World. Energy concentration complete. Fire. A group of researchers in white coats worked a big energy collection machine, pushing the mana they had collected into one dense mass. The machine roared as energy built up at the barrel, putting on a show of light and pressure. Then it fired. The glowing mass barely moved 5 centimeters. As soon as it left the barrel, it broke apart and vanished. The researchers stared at the empty space, then dropped their heads and marked big XS on their notes. It was clear, this magical energy was even less useful than what they usually worked with. A few older generals watched from behind the glass, their excitement fading fast. This was nothing like the magic they had seen from the Danmachi world. Why did that happen? One of them asked. He had come hoping for mana cannons and a whole new kind of weapon, but all they got was a quick flash. Even a railgun would have been better. The energy purity is too low, one of the chief engineers reported after conferring with the others. This is the magical energy humans can control in the Fate world, but its concentration is very poor by our standards. Compared to the magic from the Danmachi world, it has been diluted more than 100 times. What you just saw was already the strongest result we could produce after concentrating as much mana as possible, another engineer added. It looks impressive, but it has no practical value. The others nodded. This couldn't compete with nuclear energy, let alone the fusion tech they were already working on. To put it simply, this is an obsolete energy source, the chief engineer concluded. That applies to both the OD generated inside the body and the mana gathered from the environment. So the difference between the first and third worlds is concentration, the general asked with a sigh. Correct. The Danmachi world's magic is extremely dense. The magical energy in the Fate world has thinned to a fraction of that. Fine, then. The generals lost interest right away. Why bother with a weak energy source when their electromagnetic weapons looked much better? The researchers agreed. They had been excited at first, but after a few tests, they lost interest too. OD, mana, great source, small source, whatever the Magi called it, the entire system was useless to them. Terminate the project. Yes, sir. No one objected. The Type Moon World, Snowfield. You're sure this thing won't cause a problem? August stared at the projector in his hands, then looked at the group of researchers standing in front of him. These bastards were definitely trying to get him killed. We made it ourselves, one of them said proudly. The researchers looked tired and messy, but their eyes were shining. They were all from August's world, so of course they knew who Hestia was, and what kind of world they had entered. They had finally made it to the Fate universe. To anyone raised on anime and games, Snowfield was the largest theme park imaginable. But none of them could summon a servant, and none wanted to risk their life on a ritual their body couldn't handle. That meant August was the group's only gacha account. Hey! Who the hell plays a gacha game like this? August grabbed one of the researchers by the collar. Are you trying to make the real one descend and kill me herself? These geniuses had used AI to manufacture something so ridiculous that August was starting to question why he had brought them along. Just try it. You might get a surprise. Hee hee. Several researchers flashed their teeth and gave him enthusiastic thumbs-ups. Hee hee my ass. August wanted to kick every one of them out of the factory. He had brought them here to experience another world, and this was what they used their brains for. But what if it works? One of them argued. We might pull someone outside the 7 standard classes. The others exchanged knowing looks. Get lost. August refused immediately, but Hestia and Lily both nodded as though the idea made perfect sense. I think it could work, Hestia said. There's no harm in trying, Lily agreed. She was holding August's phone, which displayed the summoning screen from Fate/Grand Order. Besides, it's not like every summon comes with rainbow rings. Don't underestimate me. August's heart tightened. Was she saying he might get a normal summon and end up with a 2-star or 3-star servant? Hell no. I'm getting rainbow rings. Guaranteed. If he was going to summon someone, it had better be a powerful heroic spirit. A brilliant, multicolored rainbow summon. Before August could keep arguing, Hestia sensed a new fluctuation moving through Snowfield's ley lines. 5 servants have already manifested in the false Holy Grail War: Assassin, Berserker, Caster, Rider, and Archer, she said after closing her eyes for a moment. Lancer is the final remaining slot. So it's almost time. August nodded. The Magus they caught earlier had already been let go. They only kept him long enough to get blood samples and study his command spells, and Hestia wiped the needed memories before sending him back. The man had killed his own wife and child, so none of them felt bad for him. They just needed his command spells to link August to the Holy Grail War's summoning system. Get ready, August told the researchers. And record everything. Got it. They had been joking just a minute ago, but as soon as the experiment started, everyone went back to their stations. Soldiers guarded the factory while the researchers watched their instruments, all waiting to see which servant August would summon. August stepped into the open area in front of the building and took a deep breath. A full summoning circle was printed on a big sheet and fixed to the ground. He stood on it, lifted his right hand, and used the 3 command spells. Magical energy flowed from the red marks and spread through the pattern under his feet. Chanting is a pain. August had no interest in reciting the traditional incantation. He figured he might as well say what he wanted. If you're a saber or lancer, I'm summoning you here to fight. No grand plan or complicated goal. Fighting is the whole point. If you're an archer like Emiya who prefers running around with swords, that works too. Weird noble phantasms are welcome. If you're an assassin, understand that this is a high-level lobby. Don't come down unless you can keep up. If you're a rider and you can't fight, that's fine. We'll race instead. If you're a caster, at least show up looking somewhat human. And Berserker? August paused. Sure. Berserker works. That was his declaration to all 7 classes. He didn't care who answered, the heroic spirit only needed to be ready for a fight. The summoning circle glowed brighter as waves of light ran through its lines, but nothing showed up. August was about to keep going when he remembered the device those bastards had given him. Fine. He placed the projector next to the circle and switched it on. The researchers' eyes lit up, and they quickly typed in the last commands. A big projection appeared above the summoning circle. The AI-generated video began to play. A goddess with 2 dragon horns had been turned into a young schoolgirl. Wearing a modern uniform, she stood next to August in a strange campus romance, where they had grown up as childhood friends. The video showed them walking to school, eating lunch under a tree, sharing an umbrella in the rain, and watching the sunset from the roof. It looked disturbingly real. This was the researchers' big plan. They made a whole set of fake memories to use as a trigger for Tiamat. Instead of a rough presentation, they used their best AI models and production tools to make scenes that looked almost real. Hestia suddenly laughed. She knew the images shown in this summoning ritual could reach the throne of heroes. Every heroic spirit linked to the system would see them. That was why she supported the plan. Because she wanted to add something of her own. Hestia lifted her hand and sent a bit of divine power into the projector. The fake school romance broke apart, replaced by August and Hestia standing together under a sky full of stars. The researchers stared at the new scene. Damn. No way. None of them had expected Hestia to hijack the video. The projection started showing the memories August and Hestia shared. They sat under the stars, talking softly about their feelings while gentle music played. Will I know your eyes 1,000 years from now? August, if one day you return to your Earth, we'll still be able to look up at the same sky, won't we? Beneath the moonlight, Hestia looked at the man beside her with tears in her eyes. Her gaze held nothing but him. Then August's voice answered. No matter how much time passes, somewhere on the other side of the stars, a beautiful goddess will be waiting for me. Her name is Hestia. The scene ended with the 2 of them hugging under the moonlight, as if they were about to be parted forever. The researchers slowly raised their thumbs. Gods really are built different. Hestia had outplayed them at their own game. Usually, a summoning ritual sent its information straight to the throne of heroes. Wasn't she just showing off her love life to every heroic spirit watching? Who else would use a servant summoning to flex this hard? And yet, none of them could bring themselves to hate it. That felt exactly right. Lily quietly opened Fate/Grand Order on August's phone, then tossed it into the summoning circle. She wanted to help too. Now, let her see which heroic spirit would answer. The Throne of Heroes. It was a place built from the legends and stories of myriad beings in human history, a peaceful and timeless realm beyond the usual flow of time. At this moment, it was in chaos. August's summoning ritual had made a direct link to the throne itself, so every heroic spirit inside could sense what he wanted. At first, none of them reacted much. A master wanting a servant who liked to fight was nothing new. Then the memories involving Tiamat began to unfold, and the heroic spirits lost what little composure they had left. Who in their right mind would cast the primordial mother as the heroine of a school romance? Then Hestia swapped in her own memories, and everyone finally understood. The master doing the summoning wasn't from their world. He had come from somewhere else. Then Lily tossed the records of Fate/Grand Order into the ritual. The stories of Chaldea, the singularities, the lost belts, and all the heroic spirits who had fought with humanity flowed through the connection. The throne fell silent. What the hell was this guy doing? He hadn't merely opened a summoning path. He had forced his way into the throne, showed everyone a different version of their lives, and then showed off his romance with a goddess right in front of them. One particular heroic spirit opened her eyes. Tiamat looked at the memories that weren't hers. They were full of affection and warmth, almost like someone had turned them into a noble phantasm made of love. Then she saw the phone in the summoning circle and understood. But after seeing Hestia's recording, Tiamat couldn't sit still anymore. Wasn't that NTR? Tiamat stood up and walked toward the summoning gate. Elsewhere, the Hestia belonging to the Tight Moon world stared at the same scene in disbelief. What the hell? She's flexing directly in my face. It didn't matter that the other woman was just another version of herself from a different world. How could another Hestia show her something like this? She was supposed to be a gentle goddess, but that didn't mean she had to just sit there and accept losing in public to another version of herself. Still, the love story between the human and the goddess was beautiful. The way they looked at each other across different worlds, the idea of one waiting under the stars for thousands of years. Tears gathered in Hestia's eyes. It would be perfect if I were the heroine. She wiped her face and stood up. I need to steal him from her immediately. Hestia ran toward the summoning gate. By the time Tiamat and Hestia got there, countless heroic spirits had already gathered. The male heroic spirits were excited to claim the contract. They had finally found a master who openly wanted his servant to come down and fight. A master who didn't care about complicated wishes or demand obedience, morals, or some big show. He only wanted a good battle. Perfect. A master like that really understood them. Once they came down, they could fight as much as they wanted. No one wanted to give up their chance. Unlike normal summonings, which made a servant container from a copy of the heroic spirit's record, August's ritual connected straight to the throne. The heroic spirits themselves could enter, making the competition even tougher. At first, the female heroic spirits weren't very interested. August had the aura of several Greek goddesses, so most thought someone from the Greek pantheon would suit him best. But when the records of Fate/Grand Order showed up, everything changed. Those stories proved August already had a connection with all of them. And what was fate? It was when someone finally looked your way. Artemis was the first to step up. She loved romantic stories more than anyone, especially ones about love, separation, and devotion. More importantly, she could feel the aura of another Artemis on August. Let go of me. Before the moon goddess could reach the gate, a hand caught her from behind. And where do you think you're going? Demeter gave Artemis a warm smile. That human had an aura linked to her too. I'm only going to take a look, Artemis replied. New event. Bulk upload of 6 chapters, if we hit 800 power stones this week. Every 300 power stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 178, Chapter 178, Servant Olga Marie Animusphere. 2,238 words. New week, let's push. Artemis's attempt to slip away did not escape Demeter's notice. What does this have to do with you? Demeter shot the moon goddess an irritated glance. If anyone were going to answer that summons, it would be her. Artemis immediately turned the accusation back on her. As if you weren't planning to go yourself. There was only one place available. The male heroic spirits had already begun fighting over it, and the women had no intention of letting them claim it uncontested. Within moments, the crowd around the summoning gate burst into chaos. Amid the confusion, one person slipped through unnoticed. The gate slammed shut behind her. What? Who was that? Who got through? The throne of heroes erupted. Everyone had been fighting openly for the right to descend, yet someone had taken advantage of the confusion and stolen the position. Shameless. Despicable. The servant vessel created by the ritual was just an extension of the heroic spirit behind it. To find out who had answered the summons, they needed to identify the original mind connected to the vessel. Gilgamesh stayed seated above the chaos. The king of heroes looked toward a far corner of the throne, and everyone else followed his gaze. A rainbow light flashed across the factory grounds. A woman slowly appeared in the center of the summoning circle, her coat floating around her as the light faded. Servant, caster. Olga Marie Animusphere. Her violet eyes settled on August. Are you my master? August stared at her. Why are you here? Of all the possible heroic spirits, why had he summoned the beast wearing the identity of a magus? Considering the information sent through the ritual, he had expected Tiamat, or one of the goddesses connected to Greek mythology. Instead, Olga Marie had taken the slot. She raised one eyebrow. Why shouldn't I be here? Her appearance still resembled the director of Chaldea, a white coat over her formal uniform, red tights, and white heels completing the unmistakable outfit. And call me director. Olga tried to steady herself after arriving, but Hestia was already standing next to August. The original consciousness. The goddess looked closely at the body made from mana. Even though it was a servant vessel, this was not a copied personality from the throne. The real Olga Marie was in control. August scratched his cheek. I should probably clarify something. I'm not Fujimara Ritsuka. In this world, you are Fujimara Ritsuka, Olga replied. But Fujimara Ritsuka is not you. August stared at her. It sounded like something people said before refusing to explain further. There were many possible versions of Fujimara Ritsuka in different histories, interpretations, and parallel worlds. August, however, was unique. Right. August chose not to question her answer. My name is August. He pointed to Hestia. This is Hestia, the goddess of my familia, and the person I trust most. Lily is my companion. The people in the factory are soldiers and researchers from my country. Olga looked at the humans working nearby, and her expression shifted. These humans are absurdly powerful. Even humans from the age of gods would have struggled to match them. August had contracts with several goddesses from other worlds, and his personal strength was already close to a servant's. That much she could understand. The soldiers were harder to explain. Everyone in the factory had a body far beyond normal humans. Even the weakest-looking researchers were as strong as demigods from the age of gods, and their bodies seemed to have some strange resistance to mystery. Olga had never met humans like this before. And the factory contained hundreds. Did they come here to invade this world? They had a real goddess, an otherworlder as strong as a servant, and an army of humans built like demigods. That was already enough power to change the world. Summoning a servant as well almost seemed unfair. I only wanted a heroic spirit who was willing to fight, August said. Servant against servant should make for a good show. He still didn't understand Olga's attitude. She stood next to him with a familiarity that felt almost like a wife returning to her husband after a long time apart. But August wasn't Fujimara Ritsuka. At best, he was just a player who had watched her story from another world. Why was she being so warm toward him? Hestia watched Olga quietly. The caster looked calm, but it was clear she was a little hostile. She was jealous. August, the servant has been summoned, Hestia said. What do we do next? She left the decision to him since he was in charge of the operation. As she spoke, she leaned against him naturally, and the familiar scent of her perfume helped him focus. Most of our personnel are ready. We should bring the rest of them over before doing anything else. All right. Hestia and Lily agreed. The researchers who set up the summoning display were still confused by Olga Marie's appearance, but they had done their job. They had hoped for Tiamat, Ereshkigal, or Jean Alter. Getting Olga Marie instead was already more than they expected. Satisfied, they went back to work. The excitement about the summoning faded quickly, and Olga was left standing alone in the middle of the factory grounds. She was the beast, a beast had answered their summoning, but these humans just went back to assembling computers and unloading equipment like nothing strange had happened. Wasn't anyone going to admire her? Not even a little. Damn these otherworlders. Olga glanced at August, but he was already helping the soldiers move equipment. Then she saw the slight smile on Hestia's face. The goddess clearly wasn't going to let her get any closer to him. This was nothing like what Olga had imagined. She clenched her teeth, but kept her face cold as she followed August into the factory. For now, she was still his caster. Commander James noticed the unfamiliar woman walking beside August. Oh, so this is a servant. He looked more closely. A body made from mana was still unusual, but he saw no reason to reject her for it. By the way, Lancer has already been summoned, Commander James said. Enkidu. He handed August a freshly prepared surveillance report. These are the images. The photographs came from satellites in this timeline. The local satellites gave unusually clear images, and taking control of them was easy. Even the hackers and magi responsible for protecting the American networks had failed to stop the intrusion. The country's electronic systems seemed to contain traces of magecraft, but those defenses fell quickly once the military specialists started breaking in. August examined the photographs. A pale figure could be seen within the blurred images. Enkidu. The final servant summoned for the 6 positions of Snowfield's false Holy Grail War. The living weapon created by the gods of Mesopotamia possessed abilities designed to restrain divine beings. That made Enkidu a valuable subject, but nobody in the factory seemed particularly worried. That isn't our immediate concern, August said. Correct. Commander James folded his arms. Our objective is straightforward. We're here to test our newest weapons. They had not crossed into this world for sightseeing. Whether Snowfield existed in a parallel history, or a timeline already abandoned by its proper course, it was still another world, one that remained under the influence of the counterforce. This made it the perfect place to test their weapons. The new weapons were built to suppress beings that did not follow normal physical laws, so they needed unusual targets to see if the weapons worked. Yes, sir. The personnel nearby understood the order. The next phase of the operation was about to begin. August did not stay long. He had his own tasks to take care of, and there were still more groups that needed to come through the dimensional gate. After he left, only 2 important people stayed near the summoning area. Hestia, the unquestioned heroine at the center of August's life, and Olga Marie Animusphere, the servant whose original consciousness controlled her vessel directly. Hestia rested her chin against one hand. So what are you planning? She looked at the caster with open curiosity. Olga was not a normal servant. Her real self was in control, which meant she had come here with a clear goal. I don't know. Olga hesitated. Her thoughts were already moving through several possible plans, all of them centered on August, but she had no intention of admitting that. Forget it. You wouldn't tell me even if I kept asking. Hestia had already recognized that Olga Marie was an unusual existence. What interested her was why Olga had chosen to answer August personally. Scheme all you like. Hestia stayed confident. Olga's body was controlled by her real self, but it was still just a servant vessel made from mana. That was nothing compared to Hestia, who stood beside August in her true form. If Olga wanted a fair chance, she would have to come here in person. Even then, Hestia did not plan to lose. She was a goddess. She could beat Olga if she had to, and when August left this world, he would still take Hestia with him. Hestia had entered his life and claimed the position of its central heroine. She had already won. Olga was only a late-arriving losing heroine. Olga could feel Hestia's smug satisfaction. This goddess is sharper than I expected. She uncovered most of my intentions from almost nothing. Hestia's reputation as a wise goddess was not undeserved, even an alternate version of her remained difficult to deceive. Olga decided to avoid confronting her directly. I'll need allies. Ordinary allies won't be enough against her. Where am I supposed to find people capable of helping me? There was a reason Olga understood so much about August, and why she had been able to answer his summons. She was not only a servant, or a heroic spirit controlling her own vessel. She possessed another identity. You Olga Marie. Someone like you Olga Marie had never been part of the throne of heroes. She came from a lost belt and lived outside the usual history the throne kept. For her to leave a lasting record, she had to be preserved or remembered strongly enough for her existence to take hold. But the information on August's phone showed a disturbing truth. In Fate/Grand Order, Fujiwara Ritsuka could be male or female, yet neither version had truly carried Olga's existence with them. The only Fujiwara capable of allowing her to remain was the man standing in this factory. August. I exist because you remember me. Without you, there would be no record of me on the throne. The Fujiwara Ritsuka in the story only existed within that story's limits. Olga and the others were not supposed to have real records outside of it. August had observed their stories from outside the world, and his memories had acknowledged them as real. By using August as an anchor, the throne of heroes had gained a place to record their existences. Their names, stories, and souls had been engraved there because August remembered them. Within the throne, they no longer needed to eat, sleep, or fear death. Their records would endure for eternity, and with enough fortune, traces of them might even spread into other parallel worlds. But in this timeline, August was the key. His memory let Olga Marie Animusphere become a real spiritual record, and now her true spirit had answered his call and come as his servant. Olga watched August moving crates with the soldiers and helping them clear the factory. He never stopped working. More importantly, he possessed the ability to open a doorway between two different worlds. As soon as Olga saw the dimensional gate, she understood more about her own origin. That door was probably one reason she could exist here. The world systems had used August as an anchor, pulling scattered information together and making it stable. I may have taken one small lead, but defeating Hestia completely will be much harder. Winning August's affection wasn't just about beating the goddess next to him. August had his own duties, relationships, and problems to deal with, and if things went wrong, it could end badly. If the women around him started fighting, August could be the one who got hurt most. Olga would not let that happen. She needed a new plan that gave her a chance without putting him at risk. Hestia watched her fall silent, clearly calculating something. She has plenty of little schemes. I'd like to see how someone with supposedly no connection to my August managed to form such a strong bond with him. Hestia was not foolish. She could sense that Olga Marie's existence was connected to August in a strange way. She just did not know how that bond started. Even August could not explain how he had summoned her. Still, out of every heroic spirit he might have called, Olga Marie was the one who answered. August glanced back at his newly summoned caster. Looks like I'm a gotcha king after all. Bulk upload of 5 chapters if we hit 900 power stones this week. Every 300 power stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 179, Chapter 179, Bonus. 2,347 words. The outskirts of Snowfield. A car rolled out of the factory gates. August was driving, Hestia sat beside him, and Lilaruka Arde worked quietly in the back seat. Abnormal energy detected. Confirming a large concentration of mana gathering outside the city. Lily watched the program on her laptop. The readings showed that a huge upsurge of magical energy had started somewhere outside Snowfield, and several teams were already collecting data. We've intercepted the signal on our end. Commander James's voice came through the car speakers. August switched on the dashboard display. The screen showed a satellite feed of empty land outside the city. Gilgamesh and Enkidu had met. As soon as the two servants met in battle, the whole area felt different. Wow! So this is what heroic spirits from this world can do. Hestia leaned closer to the screen, her eyes lighting up. Not bad. Watching them in an anime was one thing, but seeing the real fight live on a satellite feed was completely different. Should we go watch in person? Hestia asked eagerly. She was already itching to head over. Of course. How could we miss something like this? August stepped harder on the accelerator. This was the reason he had summoned a heroic spirit in the first place. The thought made August look at Olga Marie, who had stayed dematerialized since they left the factory. Although he paused for a moment. Forget it. Fighting heroic spirits will be a good experience for me anyway. He wanted to find out what the famous Golden King could actually do, and whether Gilgamesh's reputation was because of his weapons or his own skill. I can fight too. Olga Marie Animusphere emerged from spirit form and appeared in the back seat beside Lily. She could see that August just wanted a good fight. There was no plan, no secret goal, and no big ambition. He had summoned a heroic spirit simply because he wanted someone to battle. As his caster, Olga Marie felt she should show she was useful. August still talked to her politely but kept his distance. Olga Marie understood. She knew her first impression hadn't been great, and he already knew her true nature. Just call me Marie. Olga Marie thought about the game on August's phone. There were a few female servants named Marie, including a well-known queen. Using that name would help her get closer to him. Then, call me Marie. She glared at him. Just because he liked Hestia didn't mean he could act clueless. He obviously knew how to talk to women. Why couldn't he say one name right? Marie. August gave in. Olga Marie's face quickly went back to normal, but her lips gave her away. She smiled. Hestia said. She definitely smiled. Lily agreed. Both of them saw it clearly. Olga Marie acted like she hadn't heard them. As a servant, I should perform the duties expected of me, she continued with an aloof expression. I may have been summoned as a caster, but that doesn't mean I'm incapable of protecting you. Even with a real goddess in the passenger seat, Olga Marie's fighting skills put her near the top of all the servants summoned in Snowfield. All right. I'll leave it to you then. August considered it and chose not to argue. Olga Marie could decide for herself how she wanted to fight. After a short pause, another question popped into his head. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. You said you were recorded in the Throne of Heroes because of me. August glanced at her through the rearview mirror. What exactly does that mean? He remembered Olga Marie saying something like that after she was summoned, but he still didn't fully understand what it meant. It means exactly what I said. Olga Marie's expression remained calm. You can be Ritsuka Fujimaru, but Ritsuka Fujimaru is not you. In modern terms, you are the player. My existence was born from your memories, or more accurately, from the memories created by the people of your world. She looked him in the eye through the mirror. I may carry the identity and setting of a beast from this world, but my real identity is caster, Olga Marie Animusphere, the heroic spirit who exists to assist you. A smile appeared on her face. Long time no see, master. Then she added another word. Player. August looked at her in surprise. Olga Marie wasn't the same beast that had first belonged to this world. The Olga Marie here was shaped by the memories brought into this universe by the people August had brought from Earth, the memories of countless players who knew her story. Her bond with August started the moment he opened the path between worlds. Those hidden thoughts and memories followed the travelers through the gate, giving her form, and recording her in the Throne of Heroes. August could play the role of Ritsuka Fujimaru because he had lived the story as a player. But Ritsuka Fujimaru could never become August. The Olga Marie in front of him was unique. At the same time, she held every possible future that Olga Marie Animusphere might one day reach. August fell silent. He had expected some secret plan or complicated scheme. He never thought her whole existence would be tied to him. Olga Marie saw his expression shift and felt quietly pleased. Good, this was the right way to win her master's heart. Once she had August, he would be hers. No one else could take him away, not even the goddess in the passenger seat. Oh. She knows how to play this game. Hestia watched Olga Marie out of the corner of her eye. A heroic spirit who exists because of August. That's new. From what Hestia knew, heroic spirits rested in the throne of heroes. They slept, dreamed, and spent eternity however they liked. That was meant to be their final home. But August's arrival had somehow turned memories from fiction into real souls and placed them in the throne. Even Hestia hadn't expected his memories to change this world so fast. "Can I ask one more thing?" August said. Olga Marie nodded. "If you were made from my memories, doesn't being recorded in the throne make you unhappy?" He frowned a little. "If I remember right, the throne is..." August stopped. If Olga Marie was only recorded because of him, didn't that mean he was partly to blame for trapping her there? He remembered something else too. In Fate/Grand Order, most characters lived in the story with Ritsuka Fujimaru. But some events suggested that servants knew about another existence beyond Ritsuka, the players watching and controlling things from above. Some servants had even thanked the players directly. They knew the players were real. But the players had never actually entered their world. August's arrival changed that. For the first time, heroic spirits tied to the players themselves started to appear. "No." Olga Marie answered without hesitation. "None of us would be here without you. If the opportunity appeared, every one of us would leave the throne and come looking for you before anyone else." She spoke like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "If you think I'm lying, summon another one. With your command spells and current mana reserves, you can summon 5 more heroic spirits." 5 more? August blinked. "They are heroic spirits who never existed in this world." Olga Marie's expression softened. "They exist only for you, and for the players of your world." Then her eyes sharpened. "But you will not be summoning them." "Why not?" "If those 5 came down, their shamelessness would become your problem." Olga Marie's eyes flashed with danger. Those women would tear August apart. "Then forget it." August gave up right away. If calling the other 5 meant more trouble, he saw no reason to hurry. But who were those 5 heroic spirits? Only the 5 women secretly watching through Olga Marie's eyes knew the answer. The throne of heroes. 5 heroic spirits had watched the entire conversation through Olga Marie's senses. "Damn you. Should we burn her?" "Let's burn her. She's far too selfish." Weapons began to slide from their sheaths as the 5 women prepared to deal with the traitor who had stolen their place. "No, no. Stop. She's still a good child." Larva/Tiamat hurried between them and tried to prevent the fight. The 5 heroic spirits were Jean Dark Altar, Larva/Tiamat, Space Ishtar, Space Ereshkigal, Marie Altar. All 5 existed because of August's memories. They were completely different from the versions already recorded in this world's throne. Born from the strongest emotions, attachments, and desires inside August and his people, they could eventually enter the world below on their own if given enough time. Larva/Tiamat was the clearest example. The original Tiamat had been cast out from the world. Even in Chaldea's records, her later appearances were more like reflections of previous energy than a true heroic spirit on the throne. Normally, someone abandoned like her shouldn't have been able to enter the throne of heroes. But when August brought Earth's people into this universe, their memories started making those impossible beings real. Their true names showed up in the throne. All 5 women were different from their original selves. Or maybe it was more accurate to say they only existed because August did. Jean Altar and Marie Altar were easier to explain. Both were impossible, twisted versions that shouldn't have existed naturally, not even as real parts of their originals. Larva/Tiamat was the true record of Tiamat on the throne, though she had stayed quiet and acted like a native heroic spirit. Space Ishtar and Space Ereshkigal were goddesses and beasts from the servant universe, beings who should have stayed separate from proper human history. August already despised Ishtar, knew the legends surrounding her, and clearly cared for Ereshkigal. That was all they needed. Both sisters had now been registered. Now, all they needed was for August to start the summoning ritual again. They wouldn't need to possess anyone or use a human vessel. They could come down as servants themselves. That was the real reason they existed. Unfortunately, the beast who slipped through first was already at August's side, and now she was trying to keep the other 5 from following. If they missed this chance, there was no telling how long they'd have to wait for another. "How is it going?" Jean Alter asked. The others looked at Larva/Tiamat. The mother goddess had been busy with something since the conversation started. At first, the women had been puzzled by their affection for August and by the fact that none of them disliked him. After Olga Marie's explanation, they finally understood where those feelings and their own existences had come from. None of the 5 intended to sit quietly and wait for that to happen. They didn't have bodies in the lower world, so they needed a way out of the throne. Olga Marie had already found a way, but it was clear she wasn't going to help anyone else. That left Larva/Tiamat. Of the 5, she was the only one strong enough to force a path open. "Leave it to me." Larva/Tiamat gave a serious nod. "I can feel another summoning ritual beginning below." She pushed one of the screens aside and showed a new image. "Oh, that's Goldie's summoning ritual. The key." Space Ishtar recognized the catalyst at a glance. So that nuisance from human mythology is about to descend. The ritual was meant for Gilgamesh. More importantly, the key link to the Gate of Babylon had already opened a path between the throne and the lower world. Everyone understood Larva/Tiamat's plan. They would use that passage to escape together. "But won't we be discovered?" Space Ereshkigal asked nervously. "If the others realize our true bodies are trying to descend." Their identities made them different from the regular heroic spirits around them. They were real beings born from memories of another universe. August saw their appearance as normal, but that didn't mean they could stay hidden forever. Leaving the throne would attract attention, and if things went wrong, the other heroic spirits might find out who they really were. "What are you scared of?" Jean Alter folded her arms and took charge, like a tough leader rallying her group. "If you're too scared, don't play. But if you're playing, don't chicken out. Are you planning to stay here forever?" She pointed toward the world below. "What, am I supposed to let some ball of spiritual energy go down there for me, wait for it to come back, and then take its memories? That's ridiculous. Am I supposed to get NTR'd by my own servant copy?" Jean Alter snorted. "If I'm going down there myself. And don't forget, that otherworldly goddess is already with him. If we keep waiting, there won't be any future left for us to fight for." Her words were harsh, but they worked. She's right, Marie Alter agreed. "I would have gone down and stolen him already if I were strong enough." Of the 6 linked to August, she was the weakest. There was nothing she could do about it. She was the Marie Alter who lived in August's heart, not the Marie Antoinette recorded in this world's throne. If she had enough power, she would have escaped long ago. "Yes. We either do this together or not at all." Space Ereshkigal nodded, looking more determined. She glanced at the favorability screen floating next to her. August's affection toward her had reached 60%. His affection toward Hestia was 99%. The difference was harsh. "Let's get to work." Larva/Tiamat clapped her hands. The 5 women gathered around the opening and began preparing their escape. Bulk upload of 5 chapters if we hit 900 power stones this week. Every 300 power stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 180, The Reverse Summoning Ritual. 2,222 words. New week, let's push. The moment Gilgamesh and Enkidu met, an enormous surge of mana erupted across the wasteland. Both servants tapped into the ley line under Snowfield, channeling more energy into their attacks. Thunder echoed overhead as they fought, and bursts of light cut through the darkness. So this is how servants fight. Wow! Even from far away, Lily could see the huge amount of mana building up over the battlefield. She had never seen anything like this before. Then she noticed something else. There are a lot more familiars around us. Small animals controlled by magecraft had gathered all around, watching the fight, and keeping an eye on them too. Lily didn't know how to trace magecraft to its owner, but she still had ways to fight back. She took out a few small devices meant to disrupt magical familiars. These are the latest prototypes I bought. You'll make perfect test subjects. Lily tossed a small bottle into the air. Thin cracks shot across the sky, hitting every familiar nearby. Their mana links broke all at once, and the enchanted animals dropped as their master's power vanished. Done. Lily brushed off her hands and turned back to the fight, but glanced in another direction. The Magi watching understood what had happened. A young girl had wiped out all their familiars with a strange device, and her group had shown up openly to watch the fight. Their presence had been exposed. Gilgamesh and Enkidu also sensed something unusual nearby. To think a true god would appear in this era. Gilgamesh looked toward the distant group. I believed the age of gods had already ended. Hestia's power was hidden, but Gilgamesh, sensitive to divinity, could still sense her. She wasn't a divine spirit in a human, or a god using a servant's body. She was a real goddess. Gilgamesh didn't know who she was, but a true deity showing up now was like making an announcement to the whole world. Enkidu sensed something different. That deity does not belong to this world. Because Enkidu was the chain of heaven and tied to the earth, they could sense things Gilgamesh couldn't. Hestia's presence came from outside their universe. The age of gods is over, but she doesn't want to bring it back. There's also a new servant with her, Enkidu said, watching the group. With you and me, that makes 3 servants here. She's a caster. A third one. Gilgamesh laughed. Ha 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 ha. How interesting. A god from another world. A human master. A being like those from the age of gods. And a servant no one knew. The mix of people amused him. Still, Gilgamesh's pride never wavered. No one from another universe could ever surpass the king of heroes. At that moment, a dark blur flew toward the battlefield. Something unpleasant is approaching, Enkidu warned. The presence brought the feeling of death, a power especially dangerous for someone like Enkidu. Oh? Gilgamesh realized right away. Another servant had shown up, probably one linked to death, and taking part in this Holy Grail war. This war gets more interesting every minute. When Gilgamesh got serious, he focused completely. When he didn't, his arrogance had no limits. Then let this be our final exchange for tonight. He turned back toward Enkidu. Receive it well as a promise that we will meet again. Gilgamesh pulled as much mana as his master, Tine Chelk, could handle right now. EA began to rotate. The Sword of Rupture unleashed enough power to wipe Snowfield off the map. Enkidu faced the challenge without a second thought. The 2 massive attacks crashed together. The ground sank in, creating a huge crater as wild energy tore through the wasteland. For the Magi watching all over Snowfield, this was the first time they truly saw what a servant could do. Just one clash could wipe out a whole city. Every group in the war stared in shock at the destruction. August, however, nodded in approval. That's more like it. This was the kind of power a servant was meant to have. Having Gilgamesh and Enkidu notice them was part of the plan. August came to Snowfield openly because he wanted to fight out in the open. As for the Holy Grail, he didn't care about winning it. We should go. Olga Marie Animusphere appeared next to them. The two servants have already left. Both Gilgamesh and Enkidu left with their masters. Hestia's presence was too much for them, and since they didn't know her full power, or what the new caster could do, neither side wanted to start another fight tonight. August nodded and pulled a helicopter from his spatial backpack. That ability really is convenient. Olga Marie stared at the aircraft. August could store and pull out almost any equipment just by thinking about it. His spatial power was almost like a miracle, and Olga Marie could only copy it a little. Olga Marie dematerialized again, and stayed close to him. August started the helicopter and flew toward the cave where Gilgamesh had originally been summoned. After landing, Hestia took the lead. She walked into the damp cavern and soon spotted a small key lying near the remains of the summoning circle. Oh, so this is it. Hestia picked up the key and looked it over. Using her divine power, she could restart the catalyst and make the same connection used to summon Gilgamesh. For her, it was almost too easy. That confirms it. Olga Marie looked closely at the key. If the King of Heroes ever attacked them, this catalyst could be a big weakness. Gilgamesh had basically left them a way to mess with his link to the throne. She crouched beside the summoning circle and placed one hand against the remaining ritual. The formula was still intact. Olga Marie released her mana into it. The ley line under the cave came to life again, but instead of sending energy into a new servant, the flow reversed and shot back through the summoning path. Olga Marie's body, made of mana, started to break apart. Wait. Is that a reverse summoning ritual? Hestia stared at her, confused. What was Olga Marie doing? The formula looked like the original summoning circle, but every part of its flow was reversed. Of course. Olga Marie smiled. I'm not stupid enough to sit around and wait. Who knows how many years that would take? As soon as the ritual finished, her body broke apart into particles of light. The summoning circle burst with even more power than when August first summoned her. Rainbow light flooded the whole cave. The glow kept getting brighter. The Throne of Heroes. Olga Marie was not the only one watching the newly opened passage. The other 5 heroic spirits connected to August had been waiting for the same chance. The moment the large-scale summoning path appeared, every heroic spirit connected to Gilgamesh, Uruk, or the Key's legend sensed it. Another summoning. Before anyone could react, 6 figures rushed toward the opening. The heroic spirits gathered nearby also felt the familiar presence on the other side, and moved to compete for the contract again. Get out of our way. 5 women who had been disguising themselves as ordinary heroic spirits dropped their facades and charged forward. You. Jeanne d'Arc, the heroic spirit recorded under the ruler class, felt that she could also enter the ritual. Then she saw another woman with her face. Jeanne stared at Jeanne Alter. Jeanne Alter was never supposed to exist in the Throne of Heroes. She was just a fantasy, a being created from imagination, who could only stay as long as someone remembered her. She was never really part of Jeanne's soul. Jeanne was already gone, and even far in the future, there shouldn't have been any record strong enough to keep such a strange counterpart alive. Yet Jeanne Alter was standing openly inside the throne. How? Ah. Marie Antoinette was just as surprised. She saw a woman who looked exactly like her among the group trying to escape, but the feeling she gave off was completely different. When had she gained an evil counterpart? What are you all trying to do? Another heroic spirit demanded. The others finally understood. They intended to descend in their true forms. Mother, what are you doing? One of the heroic spirits connected to Uruk spotted Larva/Tiamat among them. I'm returning to my child, Larva/Tiamat answered calmly. The summoning passage was just wide enough for all of them to squeeze through at once. They were in the throne only because August remembered them. Naturally, they would return to his side. Are you sure this is safe? Asked a heroic spirit with Artoria's face. 6 people were trying to push through a ritual that was only meant for one servant. Wouldn't that break the passage? Mother has a way. Larva/Tiamat released her power, covering the other women. Olga Marie had created the reverse summoning passage to send her manifested self back through the throne, and then return in her true form. She had not intended to bring the other 5 with her, but they forced their way into the same passage. Since matters had already gone this far, she decided to see it through. Olga Marie exchanged a glance with Space Ereshkigal. The two released their power at the same time, while Larva/Tiamat supported them from the center. 3 nearly identical authorities erupted together. Threefold independent manifestation. The 6 women vanished from the throne at once. The remaining heroic spirits stared after them. They had escaped. All 6 had managed to leave the throne of heroes in their real bodies. And they didn't even offer to take anyone else with them. What kind of craziness was this? Back inside the cavern, the summoning circle reached its peak. Let me out first. Move. I'm meeting him first. All 6 heroic spirits squeezed through the passage together. As soon as they felt August nearby, each one got ready to make the best first impression. Larva/Tiamat emerged first. Hello. As soon as her feet hit the cave floor, she rushed toward August with her arms open, hoping to hug him before anyone else could react. She never got the chance. Hestia moved first. The goddess grabbed August with one arm, snatched Lily with the other, and bolted out of the cave. What the hell? These women are dangerous. They've barely appeared, and they're already trying to put their hands all over him. Hestia shouted as she ran. These weren't normal servant manifestations. All 6 had come down in their real bodies. Hestia thought Olga Marie's reverse ritual would bring something strange, but she never expected it to pull down 6 real people at once. This was nothing like the Holy Grail war she remembered. Who ever did a summoning like this? 1 ritual, 1 payment of mana, and 6 people appeared together. Wait. That's my child. Larva/Tiamat reached out, but Hestia had already carried August away. The mother goddess's face grew dark. That terrible goddess from another world had taken her child right in front of her. Did she even know what she was doing? He's gone, Marie Alter said, folding her arms. And that woman is his official girlfriend. Marie Alter felt more like a strict mother toward August, unlike the others. She wasn't about to ignore the obvious problem. It seems this Holy Grail war has more than 7 servants, Space Ishtar said. Her divine eyes examined the magical foundations spread throughout Snowfield. There are another 6 servants outside the standard 7 classes. And there are 6 of us, Space Ereshkigal noted. 3 separate groups. There were still several strange summoning rituals happening all over the city. Then we'll pretend to be servants for now, Space Ereshkigal decided. Her swimsuit vanished, replaced by an outfit resembling Rin Tosaka's. I'll be Lancer. She chose the Lancer class as her disguise. Then I'm Assassin. Marie Alter picked the class she found the most exciting without a second thought. Olga Marie was already Caster. I'm obviously Berserker. Jean Alter crossed her arms with a proud grin. The Berserker class suited her perfectly. Then I'll be. Space Ishtar intended to claim Archer. I'm Archer. Larva/Tiamat raised her hand excitedly. Archer was not the class best suited to her, but August's phone had listed this version of her as an Archer. That was enough. Wait a minute. Space Ishtar stared at her. You all picked your classes already. Am I supposed to be Rider now? Archer, the class she had wanted, had been stolen right in front of her. What else would you be? Space Ereshkigal asked. You own a spaceship. If that doesn't qualify you for Rider, what does? Space Ishtar was the goddess of Venus, and possessed an actual spacecraft as her mount. Who else among them was supposed to take the Rider class? And Saber is out of the question, Marie Alter added. You fight with guns. What kind of Saber uses guns? Ha ha ha. Good point. Space Ishtar laughed awkwardly. Fine, then. I'll be writer. Bulk upload of 5 chapters if we hit 900 power stones this week. Every 300 power stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 181, Chapter 181, The Zealot Sure Has Guts, August vs. Servant. 2,362 words. What the hell? What just happened? Why are we running? August stared at the scenery racing past them, looking more than a little confused. Weren't they supposed to welcome the newcomers? Are you an idiot? Hestia knocked him on the head without slowing down. Didn't you see them? They descended in their real bodies. They aren't normal servants. Normally, a servant would be limited by the contract and command spells. But those 6 had brought their real selves down from the throne of heroes, so nothing could stop them from doing whatever they wanted. Even without jealousy, that was enough reason to run. If you don't want them pinning you to the ground the moment they catch us, then running is the smart choice. Wait. That can happen. August was stunned. He thought anyone he summoned would still be a servant and follow his command spells. But Olga Marie's reverse summoning had let a group of women loose with no restrictions. Halfway back to the factory, 2 daggers tore through the air. Hestia twisted aside, avoiding both blades without breaking stride. A servant from this world. Her brows rose. That's brave. Hestia was a real goddess from another universe. Even if her divinity wasn't from this world, no ordinary servant could take her on. Only a top heroic spirit with strong powers and many upgrades might get her attention. The attacker was Snowfield's no-name assassin, a fanatic known as the Zealot. She refused to believe in any god except her own, so she didn't see Hestia's true nature, and thought she was just a careless magus showing off in public. To the Zealot, such a heretic had to die. August slipped out of Hestia's arms and landed on the ground. Oh. An assassin. Excitement replaced his confusion. If you're looking for a fight, I'll be your opponent. Usually, artillery wiped out his enemies before he got close. Meeting a servant who specialized in assassination, and was bold enough to attack first was a rare chance. The Zealot had barely opened her mouth when August charged. A massive steel greatsword appeared in his hands. Talk later. He brought the blade down. Boom! The Zealot vanished a split second before the greatsword struck, leaving a crater where she had been standing. A heavy weapon. She hadn't expected the human to attack so quickly. She was a servant, but was he even human? August had mana and faint command spells on his hand, but that didn't explain why he was rushing a heroic spirit with just a steel sword. Don't underestimate me. Mana burst from the Zealot's body. The moment it flared, her noble phantasm was already complete. Zabaniya, delusional heartbeat. A ghostly arm reached toward August's chest, attempting to seize and crush the reflection of his heart. August didn't even look at it. He shifted just enough to protect his vital organs and took the attack with his body. The phantom hand pierced straight through his arm. He redirected it. The Zealot had grasped for his heart, yet he had deliberately steered the attack into his limb. So that's a servant's noble phantasm. August looked down at the hole punched through his arm. Not bad. August began his chant. Sacred flame, heed the suffering of the wounded, healing fire. Warm flames wrapped around his injured arm. Torn muscle, shattered bone, and severed blood vessels reconnected before the Zealot's eyes, and within a few breaths, the wound had disappeared. August was already level 3, and his healing was far faster than before. Magecraft. The Zealot stared at him. No. That is not normal magecraft. The spell didn't care how bad the injury was and fixed his body right away. It was more like a miracle than anything a modern magus could do. To her, August seemed almost immortal. He tightened his grip on the greatsword and charged again. Something strange happened when August started running, different from Orario or his own world. He moved much faster than he should have, as if this world made him stronger with every step. With his adventurer's body, he got quicker and more flexible, and attacks that should have been impossible with such a heavy weapon came easily. The zealot could only retreat. If that greatsword struck her cleanly, she had no doubt it would tear straight through her body. August was a monster wearing a human face. She relied on her speed as an assassin, constantly widening the distance between them. Whenever he forced his way into close range, she crossed her two daggers and fought him directly. Steel crashed against steel. The zealot dodged another heavy swing and cut August's side, but healing fire closed the wound before it could bleed. August swung back with a horizontal slash, making her jump over the blade. He was getting faster. More importantly, he was learning. From a hidden location, Jester Karcher watched his servant display what he considered her most beautiful form. But even he noticed something was off. The power August used wasn't magecraft. It was real magic, a true miracle that could rebuild a body. Where did this freak come from? Jester had finally found a servant who caught his interest, but now she was up against something even worse. That human was unsettling, even when he wasn't moving. The huge sword he carried wasn't an ancient noble phantasm, just a chunk of modern steel made into a brutal weapon. One good hit could destroy Jester's body. Being a dead apostle did not make him invincible. Jester realized he couldn't take on the men below. He wanted to step in, but he was too afraid to move. Another presence stood nearby. Jester couldn't see it, but he could feel something watching the fight next to the zealot. He guessed that if he tried to look, his eyes would be ruined before he saw anything. No. I finally found something entertaining. I can't let it disappear so soon. Jester refused to allow his amusement to end here. He reached for his command spells. Suddenly, a bullet tore through his heart. 2 more shattered his skull. 3 additional rounds followed to make sure. Jester's head burst like a melon, and his body collapsed. Another life gone. How? His ruined body lay motionless, but his consciousness remained. When did the bullets reach me? He had sensed nothing until the first round passed through his chest. Several buildings away, 2 soldiers in camouflage lay side by side near an open window. Target down. 1 shot through the heart and 2 through the head. Dead apostles don't look that impressive. The masked spotter lowered his binoculars. A dead apostle is still a dead apostle. Someone with abilities like his probably has more than one way to survive. Put 3 more armor-piercing rounds into him. Dead apostles were much like the vampires. The rule was simple, keep shooting until it stayed down for good. Yes, sir. The sniper adjusted his sights and fired at the body again. Jester had only been pretending to be dead. The next armor-piercing shot tore through another of his hearts. Damn it. They're checking whether I'm really dead. Weren't assassins supposed to eliminate their target and retreat? Why were they still firing? Did they identify what I am? Jester couldn't stay still any longer. If he kept lying there, they would keep firing until he ran out of lives. He jumped to his feet, but another heart burst before he could finish moving. 3 hearts. Jester's head spun. He had just restored all 6 hearts, and now half of them were gone in seconds. Losing those hearts gave him a short window to escape. Jester turned and ran. He ran fast. But not faster than a rocket. Boom! Jester threw himself toward an open sewer entrance. The rocket struck before he reached it. The explosion made his body disappear. Without hesitating, Jester gave up a 4th life, replacing his destroyed body with a new one as his remains scattered across the street. That death was especially gruesome. What kind of military has weapons like that? Jester ran into the sewer, rattled by the fact that an organized group was after him. Some top officials in the country were secretly dead apostles. Why would one of them send soldiers to kill him? It didn't add up. Even worse, these weapons were much stronger than anything he'd faced before. Jester ran through the dirty tunnels, not caring where they went as long as he got away. Another pair of concealed soldiers tracked his movements from a different position. The rocket struck the target. He can replace his body after fatal damage, and has escaped underground using a new vessel. Report complete. One soldier kept the thermal scanner trained on the sewer system until Jester vanished beyond its range. End the operation, Commander James ordered through their headsets. Yes, sir. Both teams pulled back. The military had already taken over the cameras and communication systems nearby, watching every move from the start. Back on the battlefield, the zealot's heart pounded. She could feel the mana in her body starting to fade. Looks like someone attacked your master. August caught her as she tried to retreat, and kicked her in the stomach. The zealot flew back, and before she could get up, the edge of his greatsword was at her throat. Your mana is weakening. What do you mean? The zealot froze. Her master. Hadn't she already killed him? Your master is a dead apostle, August explained. Using a noble phantasm consumes a large amount of mana. With your reserves, there's no way you could use that many techniques so freely without someone supplying you. He lowered his blade a little, pretending he had just figured it all out. The zealot stared at him. You said my master is a dead apostle. The person she believed she had killed had survived by deceiving her. Worse, he had continued supplying her with mana from the shadows. Anger burned in her chest, but being in this position was just as humiliating. That's what I said. August was ready to keep up the fight. Lord August. Lily's voice made him pause. Police lights appeared in the distance, and several patrol cars were coming as dawn started to light up the streets of Snowfield. We're out of time. August glanced toward them. Besides, I've seen enough. He lifted the sword from the zealot's throat. You should leave. TCH. The zealot had no choice but to retreat. She had assumed she had found an easy target. Instead, she had challenged a human who could fight her head-on, survive her noble phantasm, and heal every wound she inflicted. She dematerialized and vanished. August turned toward the arriving police. The patrol cars screeched to a stop nearby, some almost losing control. Officers jumped out and surrounded the damaged street. They were clearly unhappy. The place looked like a war zone. August gave them one glance and ignored the encirclement. A cheap-looking sports car with a V10 engine appeared from his spatial backpack. He climbed into the driver's seat, Hestia and Lily got in with him, and August drove away without acknowledging a single officer. The Snowfield officers watched him drive away. He had torn up the street, ignored every order they gave him, and fled the scene. There was no chance they were letting him go. August thought a line of police cars would make a good wedding convoy. The patrol units were about to move when an order came through the radio. The sergeant commanding the first response team had already been furious. The target had ignored him and driven off as if the police did not exist. Then he heard the order. What? Chief, you're ordering US not to pursue. The sergeant stared at the crater and broken pavement. The men had caused all this, then escaped right in front of them, and now they were supposed to let him go. For a junior officer who still believed in the department's authority, it felt like his whole world had fallen apart. A strange tune began playing in his head. You've wandered into the royal court. Better lower your weapon and walk away. He didn't know why that dramatic tune popped into his head, but its meaning was clear. Even Orlando Reeve, the police chief he respected most, had told them to stand down. Whoever was in that sports car had some serious backing. Just who was that man? Orlando watched everything remotely from his office. He had seen Gilgamesh and Enkidu fight, which was shocking enough. Now he'd watched a human go toe-to-toe with a servant, beat her in close combat, and stay in control the whole time. The man swung that greatsword hard enough to rip up the street. Was he really human? Even more surprising, the weapon wasn't a noble phantasm. It was just a regular blade made from modern steel. In fact, it looked like a piece of ribbed construction steel hammered into a sword shape. Sending regular officers after someone like that would be suicide. Gilgamesh and Enkidu are already enough of a problem, Orlando muttered. How many more monsters are hiding in this city? He thought the fight between the two servants would be the worst thing Snowfield faced that night. Instead, a new group had shown up, full of people who could fight heroic spirits, and send out military teams able to hunt dead apostles. What a mess. The officers on the street didn't know any of this. All they knew was that their respected chief had told them to let a criminal go. Chief, why? Why can't we chase him? The sergeant demanded an explanation. You cannot defeat him, Orlando replied. His subordinate needed to hear the truth. That man could jump out of the car and wipe out your entire unit before any of you fired a shot. Bulk upload of 5 chapters if we hit 900 power stones this week. Every 300 power stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 182, Chapter 182, They Followed Us Here. 2011 words. Thank you all so much for your incredible support this week. After watching everything unfold, Orlando Reeve turned toward Francesca Prelati, who sat across from him. His expression was cold. Who was that man? August wasn't a dead apostle or some other supernatural creature. He was human, yet he had fought Assassin head-on and overwhelmed her through brute force. He did not use magecraft to make himself stronger. That was just his own physical strength. What exactly is that man? Orlando knew Francesca kept track of nearly everything in Snowfield. If anyone knew anything about August, it would be her. For once, Francesca fell silent. I don't know. That was the simplest answer she could give. Did she know who August was? Not a damn clue. Nothing in her memory or in the records about Snowfield's command spells mentioned anyone like him. He had shown up out of nowhere. Orlando stared at her. This was the first time he had seen Francesca without that irritating hunger for entertainment. She looked cautious and had admitted outright that she knew nothing. Were there really things this old monster did not know? Stop looking at me like that. I really don't know. All I know is that he has a goddess protecting him. Francesca shrugged. If you want to investigate, his base is the Barrow Cannery. She gave them August's location right away. Her plan was straightforward. She would let the younger people working with her test the outsiders and see what they were hiding in the factory. Orlando was much more careful. You'd better not be lying. After considering it, he took out his phone and told a small team to check the cannery. Somewhere else in Snowfield was a private institution called the Colesman Special Correctional Center. Faldius Dioland had just come back to the hidden facility below when his secretary walked up to him. Director Faldius, welcome back. What's the situation? Faldius entered the surveillance room and checked the camera feeds showing Snowfield. We've received several new reports, the secretary said, pulling up the latest footage. Near Darrow Street, Assassin attacked a group that likely included at least one magus. The group did not seem to have a servant. Still, one of the men fought Assassin with only a greatsword made from ribbed steel, and kept the upper hand the whole time. The recording began to play. Faldius watched as August forced the no-name assassin back with a rough rebar greatsword. He stared at the screen for several seconds. Have we identified him? No. We searched every available government database and found nothing related to him. The secretary changed the screen. However, we think their base is the Barrow Cannery on Grand West Street. The final piece of footage showed August's car entering the factory. They bought the property for a large amount of money. Since then, every camera and street monitor near the factory has stopped working. Faldias frowned. Did you send anyone to inspect it? Yes. Nothing outside the cannery has changed, and only a few people have been seen going in or out. Most of the original workers were let go, and the new owners seem to have hired many undocumented immigrants. The factory itself is currently inactive. Orlando's police kept their information secret, but Faldias's group had already found almost everything they could from public sources. What about the tax authorities? The owners hired a professional legal and accounting team. Every tax and fee was paid in full in advance. The secretary shook her head. We have no legal reason to investigate without a warrant. They followed all the official steps, Director, and you know what their lawyers would do if we tried to force our way in. In other words, whoever ran the cannery had put everything out in the open, but still left them with nothing they could act on. Faldias could go after the undocumented workers using immigration laws, but raiding the property of someone rich enough to hire many lawyers and pay all expenses ahead of time would cause more problems than it would solve. Shit. This was the first time Faldias had faced an enemy who hid behind flawless legal paperwork instead of magical barriers and old traditions. What does Orlando plan to do? His exact order was, if you can't beat him, don't chase him. Sending regular police officers after someone who could defeat a servant would only put them in danger. Fine. Set it aside for now. The only way to find out what was inside the cannery was to go in themselves, and every Magus knew how risky it was to enter another Magus's workshop without knowing what to expect. It made more sense to start with easier targets. Faldias looked over the information the facility had gathered. They had already found the locations of 6 masters. Ryder's master was still unknown, but the others were mostly accounted for. That left the girl with the command spells, the one calling herself Ayaka Sajiu. She would be a much easier target. By the time August returned to the cannery, the factory had changed completely. Several disguised tanks were getting new tracks and being loaded with ammunition. Technical crews worked among rows of drones, and soldiers changed weapons to use against Snowfield's supernatural residents. The teams sent after Jester Karcher had come back as well. Oh, August is back. Commander James stood at the front of a briefing and waved him over. Everything went well, but that vampire got away through the sewers. How did it feel? August asked the soldiers responsible for the operation. One of them saluted. Reporting. This was our first time acting like alien overlords, sir. It was. Not what we expected. They had assumed ordinary steel bullets would struggle to harm a dead apostle. Instead, the first clean shot had erased one of Jester's lives. For people like them, most of the Tight Moon world's protections and rules didn't work as well. The soldiers now understood how strange it felt to show up as a more advanced civilization. Alien overlords, huh? Commander James rolled his eyes and cut them off. Based on their latest analysis, the soldiers who crossed worlds had bodies similar to humans from the age of gods, maybe even close to powerful spiritual beings approaching enhanced servants. Compared to the people living in this world now, they were on a different level. We've also detected movement from Orlando Reeve, Commander James continued. He's sending people to scout the factory, and the local magical intelligence agency is preparing its own investigation. Every conversation had already been intercepted. In just a short time, the military had taken over Snowfield's communication network. They even had access to the city's satellites. With this era's technology, it felt like they could see everything. They had not relied on hacking alone. There were plenty of security contractors, technicians, and officials who would sell access if the price was right. With endless fake bills from their printing presses, the military just bought half the systems it needed and took the rest later. What do you think we should do? Commander James asked. August spread his hands. Whatever you think is best. Worst case scenario, we fight them and leave. There was no reason to make things more complicated. If Snowfield became too troublesome, they could return to their own world. Commander James laughed. That's true. They weren't here to stay for good. This trip was for research, weapons testing, and live training for their soldiers. Before the briefing could continue, alarms rang throughout the factory. Woo woo. Everyone looked toward the entrance. Good evening, everyone. Olga Marie Animusphere appeared inside the meeting room wearing ordinary clothes. 5 women stood beside her. They had teleported straight through the factory's defenses. The entire room went silent. One by one, everyone turned toward August. You people really don't know when to give up. Hestia jumped forward and pointed at them. You already escaped the throne of heroes. Go wherever you want. Why did you follow us back here? Ha! I should be saying that to you. Jean Alter glared at her. You're the one who ran away. You really think I'll just stand by while 6 women chase after August? Hestia lifted her chin. He's my familia child. I have to protect his chastity. She placed one hand against her chest. I am Hestia, the virgin goddess of the hearth. Protecting the purity and safety of my familia is part of my divine authority. Hestia felt fortunate that her authority gave her the perfect excuse. Jean Alter blinked. Her hostility vanished. Greetings, revered goddess. Her arrogant attitude disappeared. She looked at Hestia like she had just found a long-lost sister. You betrayed us too quickly. Olga Marie, Larva/Tiamat, Marie Alter, Space Ishtar, and Space Ereshkigal all stared at her. Wasn't Jean Alter the loudest one just a moment ago? How did she switch sides so quickly? Humph. What are those looks supposed to mean? Jean Alter crossed her arms. How rude. This is pure love. If Hestia was protecting August's innocence, then her relationship with him was pure love. And if Jean Alter pursued August honestly and became his lover, then that would also be pure love. The astonishing logic struck the others like lightning. Pure love. Yes. That was exactly what they wanted. Aside from Marie Alter, who was already considering how severely she should punish August as his self-appointed mother, the others felt as though a new door had opened before them. Then, Jean Alter turned to carry on the argument. No one was there. August, Hestia, Lily, and Commander James had all vanished. Several researchers nearby quietly began packing up equipment, pretending they hadn't seen anything. They ran away again. Jean Alter ground her teeth. How? They didn't run. Space Ishtar flew toward the place where August had disappeared and examined the remaining traces. They left this universe. She could tell the soldiers recognized her, but that was not the important part. August and the others disappeared without a sound. There was no mana, no spatial distortion, and no spiritual dispersal. They vanished so completely that even the 6 women couldn't sense them anymore. They had gone beyond the boundaries of the universe itself. Olga Marie looked at the soldiers, who were making a great effort to appear busy. They were military personnel following orders. She couldn't bring herself to interrogate them over August's escape. We'll stay here for now, Space Ishtar declared, dropping into the nearest chair. He can hide for a day, but he can't hide forever. She had worked too hard to escape the throne of heroes. There was no way she would leave just because August got away again. The nearby soldiers stared at her shameless display. Her total lack of restraint was exactly what they expected from her. Chief, is this really all right? Several researchers turned toward the logistics chief, who stood to the side smoking. With Commander James gone, the logistics chief, was now the highest-ranking officer in the factory. "Why are you all looking at me? If you want them gone, go throw them out yourselves," the logistics chief snapped. He didn't care about getting involved in August's romantic problems. He had military operations to plan and equipment to get ready. The soldiers, however, had already recognized Space Ishtar and Space Ereshkigal. Both wore Rin Tosaka's face. Rin was one of the franchise's most famous heroines, the legendary Queen of Thighs herself. The younger male researchers could hardly hide their excitement. They were seeing Rin Tosaka in person, along with Tiamat, the woman who always called herself mother even though she had barely 10% of the maternal presence anyone expected. For fans of the series, it felt like the characters had stepped right out of the screen. Bulk upload of 5 chapters if we hit 900 Power Stones this week. Every 300 Power Stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 183, Chapter 183, some are thrilled, others are miserable. 2,207 words. Thank you all so much for your incredible support this week. The Danmachi world, the hostess of fertility. Hestia sat with her head held high, looking unbearably pleased with herself. Well, pretty amazing, right? She proudly showed off the footage she had recorded using a bit of divine power. It captured the opening clash between Gilgamesh, the king of heroes, and Enkidu, the chain of heaven. Wow! So these are the heroes of that world. Hephaestus snacked while watching the two servants fight. Their attacks couldn't threaten a goddess like her, but the show was still impressive. Two great heroes had reunited and marked the occasion by trying to blast each other away. Even she felt like joining in. That world looks so exciting. Demeter muttered, unable to hide her envy. Schemes, grand battles, and legendary heroes using their strongest attacks right away all seemed much more exciting than life in Rio. The gods were tempted. Unfortunately, only Hestia had seen it in person, and remembering that made the others a bit less excited. At least they weren't jealous enough to start fighting. So those are the heroes from the new world. Several waitresses crowded around, as curious as children. Hestia's recording showed them all kinds of new things: undead monsters, heroic spirits, servants, and the Holy Grail War. Each new explanation left them amazed. Gilgamesh's booming laugh was especially memorable. He sounded like someone having the time of his life while preparing to erase half the landscape. The Artemis Familia had also gathered to watch, and most of them looked stunned. Rithusa slowly turned toward Artemis, then pointed at herself. Her meaning was obvious. You want me to fight them? She had thought these so-called heroic spirits would be strong but still manageable. Then she saw the weapons they carried. A sword capable of splitting the world. Chains designed to bind the divine. Was Artemis trying to send her familia to their deaths? Artemis watched the sky split open on the screen, and came to a different conclusion. If her children survived a challenge like that, they might earn enough excelia to level up. Artemis nodded without hesitation. Yes, Rithusa was supposed to fight them. Seriously? Rithusa wondered if her goddess had lost her mind. She was just a poor level 3. How could she fight monsters like that? Then the footage changed, showing August fighting the assassin-class servant with nothing but a greatsword. Rithusa raised her head. Oh. If that's the level we're talking about, maybe it's possible. She wasn't scared of fighting. She just didn't want to be wiped out without a chance. So there are weaker servants too. Good. A weaker one might be beatable. Pathetic, Artemis muttered, noticing her child only felt brave after spotting a weaker opponent. Rithusa and the other Artemis Familia members stared back, silently defending their right to survive. The goddess and her children started arguing just by looking at each other. Lady Hestia. Is there more? Tiona Hiriut asked, practically bouncing in place. Show us more. Her eyes sparkled. Tiona loved wild heroic stories, especially when they were real and happening in a place she could actually visit. Ace Wallenstein watched beside her with the same starstruck expression, her golden eyes fixed on Gilgamesh's strange sword and the devastation it had caused. I want that weapon, Ace imagined herself holding EA. If she had a sword capable of producing an attack like that, the one-eyed black dragon might not survive a single strike. I wonder if Lord Goibnia could make one. I absolutely cannot. Goibnia stepped out from a forgotten corner of the tavern and turned down the idea before she could finish. She was asking too much. That weapon was clearly beyond normal divine skill. It looked like it was made for one person and tied to a power no ordinary god could copy. Gods always gathered when something interesting happened. They thought Hestia would just bring back a few stories, but instead she showed them recordings of legendary battles, strange worlds, and impossible people. Many of them regretted not meeting August sooner. His power was still developing, yet it had already begun connecting entire worlds. Given enough time, there was no telling how far he might go, or what kind of chaos he might stir up along the way. The male gods wanted in on the fun. Hestia was back in the spotlight, surrounded by gods trying to talk her into bringing them along next time. She wasn't stupid enough to agree. Hestia was happy to brag, show off her recordings, and make every mortal in the tavern jealous. But sharing August's power with the other gods, that was something she would never do. While Hestia basked in everyone's envy, the man responsible for all the excitement was asleep at home. After working for nearly an entire day, August had returned to his apartment, collapsed onto the bed, and fallen asleep. Nothing short of waking naturally would get him up again. Lily was sprawled nearby in an equally unladylike position. She was exhausted too, and when it was time to sleep she slept. Neither of them knew what was happening in Rio. August hadn't even shown up in the city, but already another legend was spreading in his name. The human who could stand against heroes from another world. The Type Moon world. August had gone home, but the world hadn't forgotten the outsiders he left behind. Both human order and the will of the planet were now wary of them. August had already brought another group of soldiers from his Earth into Snowfield, and they were disciplined to a nearly scary level. They weren't just mindless weapons. Each one had strong human desires, ambition, loyalty, curiosity, pride, and the will to fight. Those desires made human order uneasy. Alea's first thought was to get rid of the humans who had come from an unknown world. They were dangerous, unpredictable, and didn't belong in the history it was supposed to protect. Then there were the 6 women who had escaped from the throne of heroes. They were never supposed to exist. Some were just made-up possibilities from a young man's memories and a game's imagined stories. But their names were now written into the throne, and even worse, they could move in and out of it freely, come down to the world, and become August's heroic spirits without needing permission. Human order had every reason to oppose them. 3 of the 6 were beasts. Tiamat, the primordial mother. Olga Marie. And Space Ereshkigal from the Servant Universe. Human order couldn't just ignore 3 real beasts walking around Snowfield together. Gaia, however, saw the situation differently. The will of the planet didn't care much about humanity as a whole. August was still an outsider, and outsiders were usually seen as enemies. But the people with him were clearly lives from another Earth. They were human. They brought more than just destructive power. Gaia could sense what they had accomplished, their work to protect nature, restore damaged land, and defend life in their world. And unlike many magi, August wasn't trying to seize the root or break the planet's laws. He wanted to travel. He wanted to fight. Gaia found that easy to understand. Living things compete. Civilizations test their weapons. Strong beings challenge each other. So Gaia's answer was simple. Let them fight. Gaia wanted to see what people from another Earth could do. As long as August didn't threaten the proper human history of this world, Gaia was fine with letting him go wild in a singularity, a dying timeline, or a world already doomed. Those places were expendable. Human order wanted the outsiders removed. Gaia wanted to watch. Neither side would yield. Since Alea and Gaia couldn't agree, the counterforce couldn't fully act against August's group. Human order still had its own agents, and its choices weren't limited to counter-guardians like Emiya or Okita Alter. It also held a far greater trump card. Artoria at her peak. King Arthur, wielding the holy sword of the planet. But without Gaia's permission, even Excalibur's power would be held back. Using even a third of its real strength would be almost the limit. Alea wanted August gone. Gaia refused to provide the authority needed to do it. The disagreement turned into a struggle between the two halves of the counterforce. Far beyond ordinary reality, within an isolated imaginary number space connected to countless parallel worlds, Zelrich watched the situation unfold. I never expected so many strange creatures to descend at once. The old magician looked over the records in front of him. Several beasts had left the throne by themselves. Was that even supposed to be possible? It wasn't that Zelrich refused to intervene. He just wasn't confident he could win. His power came from the second magic. By pulling mana from parallel worlds, he could keep up an almost endless supply of energy. But some of the women around August were especially tough for him to face. Tiamat was one of them. If her sea of life touched him, it could change his very being and turn him into something else. Even endless mana wouldn't help if his body and soul changed before he could react. People called Zelrich a monster who was beyond normal humans, but he knew one thing: every expert has opponents they're not good at fighting. If he went into Snowfield and Tiamat caught him at her full power, she might drown him in black mud before he could get away. And those 6 women expected everyone to believe they were ordinary servants. Who would fall for that? August alone already qualified as an entire faction. Human order had asked Zelrich for help, but he wasn't about to follow a one-sided order. He would only step in if both Alea and Gaia agreed. Without a contract from both, he didn't have to do anything. If I antagonize him, that army of demigod-class humans might erase the Mages Association from history. Zelrich knew August came from beyond the worlds he could see. Even the second magic couldn't look past the limits of the known parallel timelines, but August crossed those limits like they were nothing. Zelrich could leave the Mages Association and hide away in his own space. But what if August kept getting stronger, surpassed him, and came back for revenge? Why would anyone want to provoke someone with that much potential? Gaia also seemed willing to let August go on, which made sense to Zelrich. The planet had once allowed Crimson Moon to appear. Since Gaia hadn't tried to stop him, Zelrich had taken on the responsibility for humanity and defeated him. That victory had come at a cost for Zelrich. Should I bring someone else here? Ritsuka Fujimura came to mind, a savior who seemed especially good at solving impossible problems. If Zelrich brought Ritsuka into this world, it could lead to a huge battle. But that would cause another problem. ORT would wake up. August could escape with his people, but the rest of the world's inhabitants couldn't. If ORT woke up, the spider would eventually wipe out all remaining life. That would be a disaster. Zelrich ran his hand through his beard. Better to watch for now. Even if ORT showed up, the 3 beasts might be able to hold it off long enough for people to escape the planet. For now, August was still considered human. This was a fight between 2 groups of humans, and if Zelrich picked a side without a good reason, he would be denying the humanity of the other group. He decided to watch for now. Zelrich was not the only one keeping an eye on things. Several powerful true ancestors and dead apostles were also watching Snowfield. The fake Holy Grail war involved the human order and several vampires, so the disturbance had caught their attention. They looked toward the city, then they turned away. 3 beasts were already present. Who would want to go near a beast? Beasts represented both the good and bad sides of humanity. They were meant to be defeated by human history, and for vampires or other non-human beings, facing a beast was like going against the laws of nature. Tiamat was especially dangerous. Her sea of life could change their bodies in seconds, taking away their original form, and turning them into creatures without the powers of a true ancestor or dead apostle. They would end up as lumps of changed flesh. Even Zelrich was afraid of that kind of change. The weaker dead apostles had no desire to risk it themselves. And then there was Ort as well. Another natural enemy to worry about. Who released those things from the throne of heroes? How could the throne allow this? The watching vampires muttered curses under their breath. August's arrival made some people thrilled and others miserable. Some were too scared to even admit they had seen anything. Bulk upload of 5 chapters if we hit 900 Power Stones this week. Every 300 Power Stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 184, Chapter 184, you still have the nerve to come here. 2044 words. Thank you all so much for your incredible support this week. August returned to the Hestia Familia's base on Southwest Street, and collapsed into a chair, yawning. Lord August, lunch is ready. Lily brought over 2 plates of quickly cooked meat, and put them on the table. August glanced at the plain meal, then looked around the empty house. Hestia had already left to show off her recordings, so only the 2 of them were left. Lily, should we hire someone? August asked. We can't leave a house this big empty whenever we go somewhere. It'll be covered in dust every time we come back. I agree. Lily glanced around the base. Even Yui Hirasawa, who was great at housework, didn't have enough time to take care of the whole place alone. Cassandra Ailion and Daphne Loros were busy guarding Hestia. One was a healer, and the other a frontline fighter, and neither of them had joined the Familia just to clean all day. August and Lily exchanged a knowing look. There was one perfect candidate for the job. She was like a machine, able to handle almost anything without ever complaining. After finishing lunch, the 2 of them left the base. They had barely stepped outside when a man rushed forward and dropped to his knees before August. Captain August, please take me into the Hestia Familia. The man executed the fastest kneeling slide August had ever seen. Several adventurers who had been hiding nearby and waiting for the same opportunity stared in disbelief. He got there first. I can't believe he moved that fast. The competition is brutal. August and Lily looked at each other in confusion until Lily figured out what was going on. Lord August, word must have spread after Cassandra and Daphne joined us. It seems we've attracted a full recruitment crowd. The Hestia Familia was now one of the most famous groups in Orario. August made a lot of money, got stronger fast, and protected everyone no matter their race or background. Lily herself showed that he wouldn't turn someone away just for being a Paolum. Some of the adventurers waiting outside lived in Orario. Others used to be part of the Apollo Familia, and a few had come from outside the city after hearing the rumors. You want to join our Familia? August looked apologetically at the kneeling man. That isn't entirely my decision. You'll need approval from the Adventurers Guild first. Huh? The man stared at him. What did the guild have to do with joining a Familia? The Hestia Familia has a special agreement with the guild, August explained. Anyone who wants to join as an adventurer or supporter has to pass their inspection. This rule was made to stop gods and adventurers from taking advantage of Familia transfers. If an adventurer still felt loyal to their old patron god, they might keep helping them even after joining a new Familia. That could make it easy for spies, secret alliances, and fake defections. So, every applicant had to go through a full background check, and the guild leaders would review everything before sending the final request to Arenas for approval. But what about Cassandra and Daphne? The men protested. You accepted them immediately. They were members of the Apollo Familia, Lily replied. After losing the war game, their Familia's assets came under our control. Those assets were more than just Apollo's property and money. The futures of his children were also in the hands of the winners. Cassandra and Daphne joined because the Hestia Familia had the right to take in and redistribute what was left of the defeated Familia. We are planning to hire a maid to take care of the base, Lily added, looking the men over. But you don't seem suited for that position. So if you want to become a fighter or supporter, go through the guild like everyone else, August said. Good luck, kid. He sighed and gave the man a pat on the shoulder. It took more than just kneeling outside the front door to join the Hestia Familia. August and Lily left the disappointed adventurer behind and headed toward Aurario's entertainment district. The other applicants hurried off to the guild. After all, this was the Hestia Familia, one of the most successful groups in Aurario, known for great protection and a captain who helped everyone get stronger. Who wouldn't want to be part of something like that? It was still afternoon when August and Lily reached the entertainment district. Most of the places hadn't opened yet. The workers were still asleep after being up all night, so the streets were much quieter than usual. She should be over there. Lily had already investigated the location of their chosen nuclear-powered workhorse. As they walked further in, they got closer to the heart of the Ishtar Familia's territory. August and Lily didn't try to hide at all. They walked right into the district as if they owned it. To the battle prostitutes guarding the area, their confidence seemed almost insulting. Well, look who it is. Captain August. What brings you back here? Several Amazon women walked over, eyeing August as if they were hungry wolves looking at a possible mate. You do realize this is Ishtar Familia territory, don't you? One of them asked. Walking in without permission is a little disrespectful. They didn't understand why August had come back. The last time he was here, their goddess had lost badly. Now he was walking right into the middle of their territory without any sign of caution. Just how confident could one man get? I'm here to recruit a few maids. August glanced at the Amazons and shook his head. None of them were what he was looking for. Oh? So you came here to poach members from our familia. Aisha Belka stepped out from deeper within the district, her eyes narrowing. You've got some nerve for a rookie. August's announcement brought out the rest of the battle prostitutes at the compound. When had the Ishtar Familia, once one of Aurario's top groups, fallen so far that someone could just walk in and try to steal their members? What else was I supposed to do? August raised an eyebrow. He was openly arrogant, but instead of making the Amazons angry, it only made them more interested in him. These women were fighters first. They had no interest in timid or obedient men. They liked someone wild, strong enough to challenge them, and bold enough to make them want to win him over. August had the strength, reputation, temper, and confidence they wanted. Now that he was level 3, even Aisha felt a headache coming on. Honestly, if she wasn't here as part of the Ishtar Familia, she might have offered to spend the night with him. She wouldn't have even asked for payment. Up in her tower, Ishtar got the report and took the elevator down. As soon as she heard August was here to take her people, she clenched her teeth. What are you trying to do this time? Ishtar felt both love and hate for this man. She admired his potential. August brought excitement to the dull lives of the gods, showing them new worlds and possibilities. But she hated that none of it was hers. Even worse, Hestia had already embarrassed her in front of half the city, and Ishtar hadn't forgotten that shame. Now you're trying to poach members from my familia too. Ishtar snapped. Why don't I hand over my place as their goddess while I'm at it? At her command, the battle prostitutes closed in around August and Lily. Ishtar only needed to give the word. Something like that. August nodded as though she had made a reasonable suggestion. Your familia buys most of these women through the slave trade, right? I want the people, but I don't want to pay. He opened his hands. Buying people would make me part of human trafficking, and human trafficking is wrong. So I've decided to steal them instead. That felt much better. Ishtar's eye twitched. He wanted her people but wouldn't pay. He had come into her territory to rob her in broad daylight. Her pride as a goddess had been pushed past its limit. Get him. Take that brat down. There was a hungry look in Ishtar's eyes. You came into my territory looking for trouble, boy. Don't blame me when my children eat you alive. August looked almost too innocent for someone standing in the middle of the entertainment district. Ishtar wanted to be the one to take that innocence away. August raised his left hand. The command spells began to glow. By my command spell. Ishtar froze. You bastard. Are you planning to summon a servant here? News of the battles in Snowfield had already spread through Rio. Everyone had heard the strange stories about the Holy Grail, masters, command spells, and heroes called servants. Ishtar's mind raced with possibilities. Was he going to summon one of those monsters inside her own familia compound? Don't blink. August smiled. This will be the last thing you see. Mana rushed out from the marks on his body, pouring into the street like water from a broken dam. Black mist covered the nearby buildings, changing the world until the entertainment district looked like the depths of the underworld. Manifest. My favorite in-game girlfriend. Ereshkigal. The command spells flared. Ishtar's eyes widened as the aura of the underworld spread around her. Ereshkigal. How could August have the scent of the goddess of the underworld? Even more surprising, Ishtar recognized it. This was no imitation. The presence carried an authority she knew all too well. Then she noticed something else. August didn't have just one goddess's presence. Several divine auras overlapped inside him, swirling together in a turbulent mixture, and one of them felt distinctly known. Wait. That's me. Two figures rose from the ground. Both were bodies formed from mana, but the pressure coming from them was enough to silence all the nearby Amazons. The first wore a golden Western-style outfit, with a handgun at her hip, and a katana hanging next to it. Her hair was black with a bright red underside, and her confident smile made her look like she was here for some fun. Space Ishtar. The second woman held a golden cage in her arms. She had blonde hair, determined eyes, and wore a swimsuit bold enough to catch everyone's attention in the district. Magic blocked anyone from seeing the important details, so anyone who tried to look too closely only saw a blurry white shape. Space Ereshkigal had heard every word of August's summoning chant. His favorite in-game girlfriend. The first half barely mattered. The word girlfriend was enough. Did that mean she had already married August? Should she call him her husband? Or maybe. Darling, Space Ereshkigal rushed forward with a bright smile. I'm here. The entire street fell silent. August stared at her. He had only meant to use the command spells to summon mana projections, temporary combat bodies like shadow servants. Space Ishtar was already bored with his confusion. She turned her attention to the goddess standing across from her. So that's how it is. She looked Ishtar up and down. An alternate version of me from another universe. Ishtar stared back. The woman had a clearly similar divine aura, but she didn't have the seductive authority Ishtar saw in herself. You aren't me. Ishtar lifted her chin. I am Ishtar, the goddess of beauty. She looked at Space Ishtar's weapons and fighting stance with open disdain. You look like your head is filled with nothing but muscles. There isn't a trace of elegance or beauty anywhere on you. To Ishtar, there was no way this woman could be another version of herself. The real Ishtar followed her desires, slept with whoever she wanted, and showed beauty and passion in everything she did. This gun-carrying barbarian was nothing like her. Bulk upload of 5 chapters if we hit 900 Power Stones this week. Every 300 Power Stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Chapter 185, Chapter 185, Two Very Different Ishtars. Who ever heard of a pure? 2,655 words. Thank you all so much for your incredible support this week. 2,600 word chapter. Space Ishtar understood the situation the moment she looked at the goddess standing across from her. The Ishtar of this world was wild, shameless, and driven by her desires. They shared the same divine origin, but they used it in completely different ways. Even so, Space Ishtar hadn't thought their first meeting would start this way. She looked at Space Ereshkigal, then smiled confidently at August. Master, leave these women to me. Go ahead. August and Lily stepped back, leaving Space Ishtar's projection alone in the middle of the Ishtar Familia's territory. That smile of hers looked far too pleased. She was planning something. Anyone with any sense would have felt nervous. Ereshkigal knew exactly why Space Ishtar was angry. She didn't plan to compete for this fight, so she quietly stepped aside and let her sister have her fun. Space Ishtar rested one hand near the gun at her waist and swept her gaze across the surrounding Amazons. So, who wants to fight me? All of you together? Her eyes shifted toward the tower behind them. Or should I wait for the strongest one hiding back there? The dark-skinned women around her looked like the Amazons from myth, but Space Ishtar didn't care much about appearances. What interested her was the fox girl hiding deeper in the compound. Mana was flowing from Haruheim Senjuno. The spell she cast settled over a huge woman coming out of the shadows, pushing her status past its usual limits. Phryne Jamil walked forward with a giant axe on her shoulder, her body growing even larger from the level boost, taking her from level 5 to level 6 strength. A broad grin spread across her toad-like face. I'll crush you. Phryne charged, swinging the axe toward Space Ishtar's head. Space Ishtar slipped aside. The axe hit the street, splitting the stone. Phryne roared and swung again, but Space Ishtar dodged easily, moving around the huge adventurer like it was no effort. Her gaze flicked toward Haruheim's hiding place. So that fox girl is the one strengthening her. Why are the rest of you standing there? Ishtar shouted. Take her down together. The battle prostitutes moved right away, surrounding Space Ishtar from all sides. Their goddess had given the order, and none of them wanted an outsider to embarrass their familia at home. Space Ishtar barely spared them a glance. My turn. Her figure blurred. She appeared beside the first group of Amazons, and drew the weapon at her waist. What emerged wasn't an ordinary katana, but a blade formed from condensed energy. One swing sent a bright arc tearing across the street. What? The Amazons raised their weapons, but it was too late. The energy wave tore through them and sent several women flying into nearby buildings. Before the rest could regroup, Space Ishtar spun and sent out 2 more slashes, breaking their circle. She landed lightly and sheathed the energy blade. Then she vanished again. Phryne had only just recovered from her missed swing when Space Ishtar appeared in front of her. You're too slow. She grabbed Phryne by the head. Down you go. Space Ishtar drove her face first into the street. Boom. The pavement gave way under Phryne's body. Her axe flew out of her hands, and the level 6 adventurer stopped moving. Space Ishtar didn't look back. She stepped on Phryne's body, jumped into the air, and came down toward the remaining leaders. Impossible. One of the Amazons muttered. Is this really how a goddess fights? Aisha Belka watched Space Ishtar move. The goddess fought with speed, skill, and a casual violence that made Phryne's brute strength look awkward. Every punch hit its mark. Every step put her in the perfect spot. Even weakened into a shadow servant, Space Ishtar was tearing through the Ishtar Familia. Aisha was one of the strongest level 3 adventurers around, and Haruheim's magic could boost her to level 4 for a short time. But Phryne had reached level 6 and still lost in seconds. Aisha knew she wouldn't do any better. Still, she refused to give in. She began her chant, drawing out every last trace of magic her body could endure. Space Ishtar looked over. "Oh? At least you have some spirit." Then her expression turned serious. "But aren't you underestimating a goddess a little too much?" She disappeared. Aisha caught a glimpse of movement and raised her weapon, but Space Ishtar was already inside her guard. A boot slammed into her stomach. Guh! Aisha flew backward and crashed on the other side of the street. "Sister Aisha! Aisha!" The other Amazons hurried to protect her. No one had moved when Phryne fell, but as soon as Aisha was hurt, the women gathered around her. Some even shielded her with their bodies, even though Space Ishtar's earlier attacks had left them barely able to stand. Space Ishtar paused. Interesting. Phryne might have been their captain on paper, but Aisha was clearly the one these women trusted. She looks more like their real leader. Aisha forced herself up despite the pain, refusing to stay down while the women around her were still fighting. Space Ishtar couldn't help but respect that. Her current body was just a projected shadow servant, so her stats were much lower than her real self. But her divine origin gave her a big advantage over the Ishtar familia. These women worshipped Ishtar, and their faith naturally responded to her. This world's Ishtar's divinity was all about beauty, desire, and seduction. Space Ishtar didn't care much for any of that. Her own nature was focused on battle, explosive power, and a more heroic kind of freedom. She might not be able to charm the Amazons into obeying her, but she could make them admire her. "Humph. I'm the real Ishtar," the local goddess declared. She expected her followers to look at her with the same devotion as always. But now, several of the battle prostitutes were staring at Space Ishtar with shining eyes. They didn't only desire men. A strong woman could capture their attention just as easily. And Space Ishtar claimed the same name as their goddess. For the Amazons, admiration was almost the same as worship. The more they saw her take control of the fight, the more excited they became. She looked young, confident, and full of life. Most importantly, she was strong. She had jumped into a fight against a whole familia without hesitation, and defeated their strongest members in one go. What an incredible Ishtar! This world's Ishtar could feel her charm slipping away right in front of her. Her followers were starting to admire another version of herself. "I can't allow this." She needed to take back control. If Space Ishtar stayed much longer, she might win over half the familia without even trying. Before Ishtar could come up with a plan, another voice called out from behind August. "Yahalo!" Space Ereshkigal stepped forward with the golden cage still held in her arms, and gave this world's Ishtar a friendly wave. Ishtar stared at her. She hadn't expected Ereshkigal to greet her so casually. The gloomy goddess of the underworld had never acted like that around her before. Her confusion lasted only a moment. "What do you want, you damned cave-dwelling creep?" Ereshkigal's welcoming smile froze. Her mouth twitched. "You little master, can I handle this one?" Ereshkigal was furious. No matter the universe, Ishtar was just as annoying. She stood there holding her golden cage, wearing a pleasant smile. But the smile was so forced that anyone could tell it was unsettling. "Sure." August noticed Ereshkigal's clothes fluttering, even though there was no wind. She was beginning to reveal her darker side. What are you planning?" Ereshkigal walked calmly and gracefully toward Ishtar. With every step, Ishtar grew more nervous. Ishtar could tell Ereshkigal's body was only temporary, made from mana, yet she didn't want to make the first move. If she returned to heaven after fighting this version of her sister, the real Ereshkigal might want revenge. "What do you think?" Ereshkigal lunged. I'm going to beat you up. She lifted the golden cage and dropped it right over Ishtar's head. With her divine power sealed, Ishtar hadn't expected this other Ereshkigal to attack so quickly. The cage pinned her arms to her sides, and she stumbled blindly as Ereshkigal pulled her down. Lady Ishtar. The Ishtar Familia's fighters scrambled to their feet, ready to help. You called. Space Ishtar casually kicked Phryne Jamil aside and turned to face them. The Amazons froze. Now there were two Ishtars before them. If they rushed to defend Lady Ishtar, they might end up helping the wrong one. Worse, attacking Space Ishtar could mean defying another form of the goddess they worshipped. The women looked helplessly at one another. What do we do? She's also Lady Ishtar. No one had an answer. Meanwhile, this world's Ishtar's face was already bright red from Ereshkigal's slaps. You damned cave-dwelling hag. Getting beaten by what seemed like another version of her gloomy sister was humiliating, but Ishtar refused to give in. A goddess might lose a fight, but she would never admit defeat. My Ereshkigal looked thoroughly pleased with herself. I'll have you know, I am the most beautiful flower in the underworld. Among all the heroines in the game, Ereshkigal had always felt like one of the clearest romantic choices. August told me that himself. She smiled proudly. Smack. Then she slapped Ishtar again. Don't look down on me. Ishtar's anger finally overwhelmed her judgment. Her eyes lit up with the charm of the goddess of beauty. Seduction was one of her greatest powers. As soon as her gaze swept across the street, the adventurers nearby froze. Their minds clouded with desire. Even Lily felt the pressure in her mind, trying to break her resistance and make her obey. Put away that pathetic charm. Smack. Ereshkigal responded with another slap. Now the other side of Ishtar's face was swollen too, matching the first. That doesn't work on me. What? Ishtar stared at her. It made sense that Space Ishtar could resist charm since they shared the same divine origin. August also had enough resistance to handle it. But Ereshkigal shouldn't have had any natural authority to protect her from Ishtar's seduction. Humph. Ereshkigal raised her chin. A faint, starry meter appeared above her head, glowing with 7 lit segments. As soon as it showed up, the charm on everyone nearby broke. The Amazons and Lily got their minds back, though they still remembered everything that happened. Everyone stared at the strange display. What is that? A representation of affection. Ereshkigal proudly pointed toward the meter. When I fight with Master, the more affection we have, the stronger I get. Usually, it would start at 0. She paused for dramatic effect. But mine, Ereshkigal's smile turned even smugger. Starts at 7. The surrounding Amazons counted the 7 glowing sections. 7 levels of affection. It almost looked like a level 7 status. You. Ishtar's eyes widened. How could a gloomy woman like you possibly be loved by anyone? As the goddess of beauty and desire, Ishtar understood lust better than almost anyone. But this was the first time she'd seen a power born from such simple, almost innocent affection. How rude. Ereshkigal placed a hand against her chest. This is pure love. Space Ereshkigal existed because of August. She wasn't exactly the same as the original, but all the features of her saint graph were still there. Her master affection gauge not only made her stronger, it also protected her from mental attacks like charm. This was the power of pure love. TCH. Lily and Space Ishtar both clicked their tongues. Lily was annoyed by how openly the goddess showed off her bond with August. Space Ishtar was upset because Ereshkigal had stolen the spotlight from her big entrance. Neither of them liked seeing her act so proud. She's infuriating. Ishtar could barely believe it. For the first time ever, the goddess of beauty was humiliated by something as silly as pure love. And that silly power had broken her charm. You're out of tricks now, aren't you? Ereshkigal pushed Ishtar to the ground. Then I won't hold back. The underworld goddess powered by pure love started beating her for real. 1 slap. 2 slaps. 3. She didn't hit hard enough to draw blood. She used just enough force to leave Ishtar's face swollen, and take away every bit of her dignity. Never underestimate a goddess's control, especially one who knew August's abilities well enough to copy his favorite way of humiliating someone. With the whole Ishtar familia stunned, Lily finally turned to the fox girl trembling in a hidden corner. You. She looked Haraheim Senjino over and confirmed she was the one they'd come to find. There were also a few unexpected bonuses. What are you planning, little light? Aisha Belka forced herself to stand as soon as Lily approached Haraheim. She gripped her large curved sword and stepped between them, even though she was hurt. She wasn't called the Antianira for nothing. No matter how badly she was beaten, Aisha would always protect her friends. We came here to select some maids, Lily said. And unless I'm mistaken, these girls were recently brought in by the Ishtar familia. She looked past Haraheim at several frail children hiding in the shadows. None of them seemed older than 12 or 13. They were probably new captives. Outside Ororio, wars between kingdoms, food shortages, bandits, and human traffickers created a steady supply of victims. The criminals captured girls from villages and poorer territories, then smuggled them toward the city to be sold. Slavery was forbidden within Ororio under the laws imposed by the gods, but the nations outside the city were another matter. People could be cruel. So could the gods. We're taking them with us, Lily declared, pointing toward the children. The Hestia Familia needs people to maintain its base. Working as live-in maids for the Hestia Familia would still be a job, but compared to what waited for them in the entertainment district, it was a huge stroke of luck. Aisha stared at her. You're seriously planning to take them by force? Lily didn't even bother pretending to negotiate. Do you want a war game? August finally spoke. He had been paying attention the whole time. We just finished dealing with the Apollo Familia. He gave a small smile. But if the Ishtar Familia wants to be our next punching bag, we can make that happen. The Ishtar Familia's fighters hesitated. No one in Ororio had forgotten what happened to Apollo's Familia. August and his friends had destroyed a much bigger group, taken all their property, and forced their god out of the city. Who would volunteer to become their next target? Let Lady Ishtar go. Aisha looked toward Phryne, who was already unconscious, then toward her goddess, who was still being slapped around by Ereshkigal. She knew there was no one else she could rely on. I'll exchange Haraheim and those girls for Ishtar's release. If giving up a few new captives could save the goddess and the rest of the familia, Aisha would make that choice. She was responsible, and she acted like it. A goddess in exchange for several smuggled girls. The terms were harsh but understandable. August, Lily, and even Space Ishtar looked at Aisha with new respect. She really was impressive. Even while hurt and surrounded by enemies, every choice she made put her friends first. Bulk upload of 5 chapters if we hit 900 Power Stones this week. Every 300 Power Stones equals bonus chapter. 40 advanced chapters available on my Patreon. https://p-atreon.com/dragonnx. Just remove the hyphen to access Patreon normally. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Novels Wonderland.